Chapter 23. Sympathy. Legion. Sympathy. Understanding is honoring the truth beneath the surface. Mina, Rex, and Kyoka had been enjoying their time at the mall and were going over a list of supplies. Mina, although she wanted to take a look at every shop, had fortunately been corralled by the combined efforts of the other two. Everything had been going pretty well. Had been, that is. Hey, you're one of the girls from UA, right? Mina couldn't even blink before she felt an arm around her shoulder and a hand around her neck, letting out a half-choked noise. What? What the you? Rex snarled as he drew a blaster from within the fleece he was wearing.
Ah, nos soudains mouvements.
Otherwise, this little piggy, he waved his pinky finger mockingly, disintegrates. How did I think to bring a blaster and not a comm? Let her go. Kyoka hissed as her jacks tensed. Gee guys, I just want one thing, bring me Mandalore. I want to talk with him, Shigaraki demanded. You do that for me, and we won't have to deal with a big mess, and no sudden moves, Pinky. I'd rather not stain my clothes. Mina gulped and clutched at the closest thing near her, which turned out to be Rex's hand.
Rex, Kyoka.
It's going to be all right, Mina. Kyoka, go get Mandalore. Do it as quickly as possible, but don't bring attention to yourself. There's too much at risk. All right, Kyoka stuttered before taking off. Shigaraki grinned. Heroes, so predictable. Leading them to a fountain, they sat down with Rex holding her hand tightly and providing all the comfort he could, all while having his blaster trained at the villain that had gotten the entire VOD's ire. He wanted to show that if he made good on his promise, he would shoot him then and there. Listen here, you crusty Shabir. If you lie, then I will find you, and I will make you go through so much pain that you will wish that you were never born. And if you think your clever insults will work here, then just know this. I will feel absolutely no guilt in putting you 6 feet under. Rex said in a tone cold enough to make the villain lose his manic smile for a moment, with a small amount of shock being visible in his eyes, even more so when he felt the barrel being pressed against his forehead. Looking into the eyes of the NPC in front of him, he saw absolutely nothing even reminiscent of guilt or regret. Only stone-cold determination and hatred directed towards him. This thing wanted him dead. He grinned in delight even as he felt his heart stutter in fear. Feeling the sweat run down his brow, Izuku kept on glaring at the hated villain in front of him, who was looking at him with sadistic glee permeating his eyes as he held Mina by the throat, only a finger away from turning her into bloody dust. Looking at the pink girl who had nothing but terror in her eyes, he did his best to assure her that everything would be fine. Glancing around at his other friends while making very subtle hand movements, making them back away. Now, they just needed to distract him. Everything is going to be fine, Ishido. I am here now. Shigaraki chuckled, a dark gleam appearing in his eye. That phrase, always the same thing. It's funny, you know? What do you want, Shigaraki Tamura? Oh, I'd like a lot of things. You being dead for one. Shigaraki huffed with a grin and Izuku slightly balked. Has he gone even more insane? Again, what do you want? Izuku questioned, emphasizing each word. I guess, at this moment, I want answers and I think that you, Mandalore, can give me them, Shigaraki said as he tightened his grip on Ishido's throat, making her choke. Let go of her right this instant. And lose my leverage? I don't think so. Unless you have something up your sleeve, Mandalore. She's staying right here until I get my answers. Izuku gulped and Mina shivered, trembling under her own fear. Izuku grimaced as only one option came to mind. Then take me instead, Izuku said as he extended his hand, palm up. Shigaraki blinked. VOD, you can't be serious. Rex said as well as all the others in the mindscape. Nana was especially furious. Really? Offering to take her place. How noble of you. What makes you think you can trust me not to kill you both? I don't. But rest assured, Shigaraki, I am fully ready to take you down with me, Izuku said as he got closer, careful to not let any sudden movement startle Shigaraki. Besides, if you do kill her, then nothing will stop me from killing you, he declared, glaring straight into his eyes. Shigaraki and Mandalore stared at each other in contempt before the other started to grin maniacally. You're really serious? You will honestly kill me if I so much as draw a single drop of blood from her, Shigaraki chuckled. You and your clones are pretty alike then again. I should have expected that. This certainly wasn't an opponent playing the pacifist run he was facing. No, this was someone like him, someone willing to kill, willing to do anything to get what they want. I really did pick a good player too. I am, Mandalore said as he got closer. Shigaraki grinned as he took his hand and tightened his grip on Mina's throat for just a second more before finally releasing her. Rex, get her out of here now. But Viod, that's an order. Go. Rex hesitated for a second more before nodding and leaving with Mina, the latter clutching him tightly. All right, what answers do you want? First of all, how come your quirk is basically an NPC spawner with cheat codes? And why are they so stupidly OP? It's really annoying and unfair. Heroes aren't supposed to have NPCs this strong. That's confidential. And my brothers are not NPCs. They live and breathe like you and me. Faye. Softness. Sympathy. Such heroic nonsense. It sickens me. You heroes are nothing but filthy hypocrites, Shigaraki gagged, disgust filling his voice along with the undertones of something that couldn't quite be identified. Mandalore raised his brow at the hypocritical part, but continued to jibe much to Nana's annoyance. That's rich coming from the guy with worse hygiene than Aizawa-sensei. What did you say? You heard me, Krusty. You have without a doubt the worst hygiene I've seen in my entire life. I should kill you right where you stand, you bastard. However, I'm taking the stealth route today, so that isn't an option, as much as I hate it besides. You're too interesting right now. You would be dropped before you could even take a single step. Izuku snarled, making the blue-haired villain look confused at the statement. He would clearly be able to disintegrate him faster than he could pull the trigger. So what did he mean? You're bluffing, you cheater. Am I? For all that you know, I could have snipers trained on you right this moment, and you wouldn't even know. Having bought himself some more time due to the crusty villain currently fuming in his thoughts of whether he should take the chance and reduce him to dust or stay in place in case he wasn't lying, Izuku hoped that more of his brothers would show up to help. You know, Thorn, I'm glad that you agreed to come out here with me. Well, I have said before that I enjoy your company the most out of 1B, plus getting to traverse outside of campus every now and then is something I rarely get to do, so it's a double win in my book. Hearing the redhead giggle warmed his heart. He wasn't exactly sure if it was in the romantic way or platonic sibling way, but he had noticed that she was the girl he spent the most time with in general, and they had hit it off almost immediately from the day they met all those months ago. What's more is that he had learned that she was very fond of motorcycles after a few days, and had even told him about how to drive and operate one. In all honesty, it wasn't that different from the BRC speeders. He may have to ask Izuku if he would be able to give her one for her birthday. No blasters, of course. Where should we go next? She asked him, snapping him out of his thoughts as they kept on walking through the mall. Well, I've heard that there should be a merch store close by. Want to check that out? Guess you like hero merch just as much as your brother, huh? That I do, sire, he said, before clasping a hand over his mouth, almost as if he had said something he shouldn't have. What did you just say? I heard it was in Mandoe, she asked, curiosity filling her eyes as she had noticed how quickly he had shut his mouth. Did he accidentally call her something? It's nothing important, really. You do realize that just makes me even more curious, right? Well, I sort of called you Dash before he could answer her, however. Thorn saw someone coming running towards them. Rex, with Mina in tow. Rex? VOD Ishido? What's going on here? Where's Ori VOD and Ivarla VOD Eri? Thorn, am I glad to see you here? Call Cody. We need backup ASAP. Why do you need Dash? It's Shigaraki. Without a second thought, Thorn activated his wrist comm and got through to Cody in less than 2 seconds after the name reached his ears. Cody, this is Thorn. I need Ghost and Torrent Company along with Lightning Squadron and Delta Squad at VOD's coordinates ASAP. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. Code. Disintegrate. Normally, Cody would have asked his brother why he needed to send this many troops, but hearing the codename leave Thorn's mouth, he immediately activated the alarm in the Topoka dorms housing the VOD. Shortly after, Dozens upon dozens of clones started to scramble around, getting into their armor and getting their gear while also preparing their vehicles. Whoa, guys, what's going on here? Denki asked, looking around in confusion as he heard all of the chattering around him. Looking at the student who had decided to stay after school to hang out with them, Cody walked over to him. Shigaraki has been spotted at the mall. Ori VOD and the others are in danger. Hearing the name sent a shiver down the electric blonde's spine, but he quickly smacked himself with both hands, trying to calm himself down before looking at the martial commander with a serious look. What can I do to help? What? VOD Kaminari, you don't even have a lice dash. My friends, no. My brothers and sisters are in danger. You have to let me come and help them. Cody, I beg of you. Denki all but begged as he put his hands on the clone's shoulders and nearly got into his face. This, VOD Kaminari? This is what I like about you. You may often be scared in some situations, but when it calls for it, you always jump into action. Follow me. I'll see if I can find something to make you more anonymous, Cody said with a grin as he led the electric user to the armory. Whoa, this place is, simply calling it cool would be an insult. Denki, who had changed into his hero costume, said in awe as he saw the several rows of blasters, weapons, and armor placed along the walls, while Cody walked around and looked at the inventory before grabbing a helmet and a DC-17 blaster pistol along with the upper part of a chest plate. The chest plate may be a bit of a tight fit, but everything else should be fine, the marshal said, as he also gave him a holster he could put on his costume. Denki looked at the helmet, both in awe and confusion. It was different from all of the others he had seen. Instead of the more T-shaped visor and bucket-like shape, this one was more compact with a softer edge and a small muzzle sticking out, while having a shade on top that looked like it was made to block out the sun, and the back of the helmet was flatter, lacking the top fin on the other helmets. I've never seen this type before. What is it? He inquired as he inspected it. An Advanced Recon Force Helmet, or ARF for short. New design for some ideas we've been coming up with. It has an infrared scanner, which should help you in darker places and to identify friend and foe. Putting on the protective headgear along with the armor and holster, he looked around as the insides of the helmet activated, before a small image of himself showed up. Whoa, I think it just scanned me or something. It's showing my data and all. It does. That helmet now belongs to you. If anyone else puts it on, the visor will black out, Cody said as they walked over to the vehicle section. When they got there, however, they found several clones gathered around one of their brothers holding his leg in pain. What's going on here, Lightning Squadron? You should be ready by now. It's Twist, sir. He twisted his ankle. Are you kidding me? Now of all times. Hey, please don't get mad at him, Bio. It happens to all of us. Right, sorry. I'm just on edge like everyone else. But we now face a new problem. Who will take Twist's place? I'm not sending in an undermanned squad. What about him? One of the clones asked and pointed at Denki, surprising both Cody and the electric blonde. Me? But why? Well, looking at you, you seem to want to get there fast, and we're currently down a member. But I have no training like you guys. Well, experience is often the best teacher. Don't I need a driver's license for a speeder, though? Who said anything about driving? Have you ever ridden a horse before? One of the clones asked. I have. In fact, I used to be an equestrian. But why is that relevant? Denki replied, confused as to why him being able to ride a horse had become part of the conversation. You'll see. Any other questions? Yeah, what's going on? How is it that I, with my Nomu, can cause so much devastation in a single night, yet are forgotten about the next day? I can understand if they focused on your clones. After all, the heroes always get the spotlight. But Stain, he spat the name out in contempt, making Mandalore jerk in surprise. He's all everybody's talking about. He then sharply turned and jabbed a finger at him. They were even sweeping your fight under the rug before your little press conference, for all the attention you got for taking Stain down, and I admit, I even thank you for that. He's still become the center of attention. Why? I know it involves All Might, but I'm gonna need your help to figure it out. Mandalore took a deep breath knowing that somehow, Whatever he said next would be crucial to everybody's survival. You lack purpose. Damn it, I didn't mean to say it like that.
What?
Mandalore sighed again before continuing. All you seek, all you do is cause destruction. Any villain can do that. Hell, even some heroes have their reputations due to collateral damage. Stain. When I crossed blades with him, he spouted off his ideals to the world. Crazy as they were, I understood them. Staring off into the distance toward the crowd of people just minding their own business, he continued. A world of heroes like All Might. Heroes who do it for the sake of helping others. Not for fame, not for glory, not for money, but for the sake of making the world a better place. Hemph, yet, when people need them most is when they fail to live up to that ideal. Mandalore's eyes widened minutely as something ugly surged beneath him, something that he absolutely hated to even feel about the monster next to him. Sympathy. Has he? No. Focus. This is the same monster who killed your brother. Just because he might have had a bad past doesn't mean that he's not responsible for his actions and doesn't enjoy doing what he does. And what about you?
Menelo.
How is All Might related to you? He your father or something? Why does everybody assume that?
No.
He's not my dad, but he is my inspiration for being a hero. Yeah, I remember your little speech. Made me more nauseous than I've felt in years. You've certainly got a way for words. Rising symbol of hope, Shigaraki said as he tightened his grip on Mandalore's wrist. Tell me, why hope? Why not peace? Why not make yourself the next All Might? Mandalore stayed silent for a moment as Shigaraki's question rang in his mind. In his mind, he thought of Isabi, the quirkless girl that he saved during his internship, the people that his brothers had rescued at Hosu, his friends and family, Eri. Because this world doesn't need another All Might. It needs more. The people have grown too complacent and rely too much on him. When he inevitably has to retire, the world will be thrown into chaos. He. And if all goes right, I'll be the one to do it, Shigaraki said as he too peered out at the crowd. Look at them, little sheep, mindlessly wandering, mindlessly smiling, uncaring of what goes on beneath them. They think themselves safe due to one man, a man they treat as a god. But you and I both know the truth. All Might's time is waning. Even so, when that time comes, my brothers and sisters and I will be there to stop you. We will bring hope in the darkest hour and send you back to whatever hole you came from. You and your master. Shigaraki chuckled. So, you know about Sensei?
Ido.
Ha, he would absolutely love to meet you. Tell me, Shigaraki, I've answered your question. Answer one of mine. Oh, ask away. What is all for one planning? Shigaraki laughed and sighed again. Alas, you've asked me the one thing I can't answer. Not even I know what goes on through Sensei's mind. Mandalore grimaced but noticed that Shigaraki was shifting. I've decided something. I'm not going to kill you. It'd be too easy, and I wouldn't have any fun anymore, Shigaraki said as he suddenly let go of Mandalore's hand. So shocked at the sudden departure, he couldn't move before Shigaraki was already close to the crowd. Any sudden movement now would mean the deaths of innocents. Know this, Mandalore. You're now my player too. Playing on opposite sides of the campaign until we reach the final battle. It seems like a story come true. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm really excited. Mandalore could only grunt as he stayed sitting on the fountain. You know, I hate you with all of my being. But have you ever considered joining me? With your clones and my drive, we could co-op and easily throw Japan into chaos and make the hypocrites pay. What do you say? He asked, as he extended a hand out towards the freckled teen. Hey, are you serious right now? Deadly, but I suppose I've gotten my answer. Shame, but I still had to try. Turning around and walking away, he left Mandalore behind. Until we meet again, Mandalore. Disappearing into the crowd, Tamura would soon head into an alley and walk into one of Kuroji's portals, none of the crowd any wiser to the confrontation that just occurred. Ugh, why did I have to feel sympathy for my brother's murderer? It felt disgusting. Is this what Bakugo feels like when he sees me? Mandalore muttered beneath his breath as he looked at his trembling hands. Focus. Do not delve into a panic spiral, he said to himself as he slapped his cheeks to calm down. VOD, are you okay? A voice said from behind him, making him jump into the air and turn around to come face to face with Boss. A gifts. Don't sneak up on me like that, boss. Well, we wouldn't be good commandos if we weren't stealthy, would we? The voice of Scorch called out, this time from his right side. Do you know where that crusty Shabir went? Sev inquired, giving Izuku the third shock in a row. If you give me some time, I could try and track him. Fixer replied, this time nearly making Mandalore's heart jump into his throat. Izuku? For a moment his mind was clouded. Blood and screams. Blaster fire and scorched flesh. Ratten Eliot. Izuku. He gasped as he felt Nana shake him out of his shock before shaking his head. No. If Kurogiri was anywhere near here, then they're both gone. But I can't express how relieved I am to see you four here. Boss, Fixer, Scorch, Sev. Focusing a bit more, and noticing his vision clearing and his heart no longer pounding in his eardrums, he took another deep breath before turning around and noticing the other clones. When did you get here? Just now. We got the call from Rex and Thorn. Brought up 2 companies worth in case there was another Nomu attack. Good thing I have my license now. Wait, where's Mina? And Rex? Ochako.
Eri.
Boss took Izuku by the shoulders and helped him calm down. It's fine, they're fine. They evacuated as soon as the order was put out. Izuku visibly calmed down upon hearing they were safe and took the time to pay attention to his surroundings. Clones were already posting up orders, and police were already arriving on the scene as civilians whispered and stared, bystanders to an unknown event to them. You really know how to get into situations, don't you, Midoriya? Turning, he blinked as he saw a familiar face and smiled at All Might's friend. Detective, it's good to see you again, he said, while Tsukachi took off his hat and walked over to him. From what I've heard, Shigaraki nearly murdered one of your classmates, and then nearly you. Do you know if he's still in the area? He's gone. That teleportation quirk is a pain in the neck to deal with. Him being able to pop in and out like that when he feels like it might mess up my mental health even more than it already is. Tsukachi gave him a concerned look, but Izuku waved him off and assured him that he'd visit Hound. I'm just happy that no one here was harmed. Licensed hero or not, you're still only a kid, and I won't allow a kid to die, not on my watch. I just hope we'll be able to bring Shigaraki to justice sooner rather than later. But that reminds me, boss. How did you arrive here on such short notice? There is too much traffic for the BRC speeders. Izuku asked as he turned to his commando brother again. We might have used the new ones. We haven't tested them fully yet. Look, it was either that or I got nothing. I don't see what all the fuss is about. I think they handle like a dream, a voice called out, making Izuku turn his head in the direction it was coming from almost fast enough to snap his neck. Kei Kaminari-san? Wearing the helmet and chest plate of the armor made to the new ones was his electric classmate, riding on top of a bipedal machine that looked a bit like an oversized chicken with a blaster cannon at the front and some armor at the front to give the rider some protection. Yep. As soon as I heard that you guys were in trouble, I knew I had to come and help. Fortunately, I got the chance too. Shame that Shigaraki's gone. Would have loved to have blasted him. You and me both, Cody said as he walked up and gave Izuku a quick one-over. Blitz was cool enough to show me the controls, and I got to ride horses as a kid, so I was able to get the hang of it pretty quickly. Should have seen him race down the streets. It's a good thing that this mall is so close to UA. Blitz said as he walked up with his walker and bumped Kaminari's shoulder. It's honestly surprising how fast he caught on. Even having prior experience with riding horses, controlling one of these walkers were difficult even for us. We were able to traverse even the heavily trafficked road luckily. They're sorta all-terrain, you know? And with their speed, they can be used for reconnaissance missions and also be used for transport of small goods. One of the members of Lightning Squadron said, as they all dismounted. At Artis. Denki beamed, making the clones, Izuku and Tsukachi look at him with raised brows. Why? At Artis? Oh, well, I just listened to what you said about them.
All-terrain reconnaissance transport.
You know, I kinda see what VOD Jiro means when she asks how you can appear dumb as a door one moment and smart as hell at others. Blitz said, causing Denki to elbow him in the side. Hey, I like it, Izuku said out of the blue, and they blinked at him in surprise. At Artis it is Naviodi. Denki smiled brightly before a commotion brought their attention to the other students finally arriving from the other sections of the mall. Midoriya, are you Alkaminari? Ochako asked as she came running with Kyuka in tow, the latter carrying Eri. Explain, jamming way. Kyuka said in a tone that was a mix of snark, surprise, and worry. While the resident Pikachu explained to his classmates how he got there and getting a small warning from Tsukachi, Izuku heard a beeping from his wrist comm, which was noticed by Delta Squad who turned their heads towards him, the five exchanging nods as their older brother answered the call. Mandalore speaking. Izuku, the voice of Inko cried out from the comm, nearly bursting the eardrums of the quintet, even with Delta Squad's helmet's noise cancellers activated. Mom. Izuku yelped as he listened to his mother, crying on the other end of the line. Are you all right? Did you get hurt? A multitude of other questions came screeching out of the speaker, even causing it to crackle from the loud noise. Yes, Mom, I'm fine. Nobody got hurt. Everything's fine now? Oh, thank goodness, now. What were you thinking? Another tirade, although this one much more angry, came out of the speaker, completely disorienting Izuku and making him gape at hearing his mother so furious. Delta Squad, on the other hand, found it amusing, until Inko's attention was directed at them. Don't you think you're getting out of this? All 381 of you are in big trouble when you get back. The voice rang out through the mall, causing each and every clone there to shudder in fear at the punishment their beer had in store for them. And thank you for coming along to help my boy, Kaminari. Although you shouldn't have risked yourself either, young man, Inko said in a much gentler manner. Why does he get a pass? Sure thing, Ms. Midoriya. Don't worry, I'll keep an eye on Izuku, Denki said jokingly in response to Izuku's unamused glare, before hearing snickering from the rest of his friends and even Eri. ET2, VOD, Sayarike, he thought, as he felt the smallest sensation of betrayal shoot through him, something quickly replaced with mirth. Seeing his friends and his brothers be so relaxed around each other, it brought a lot of peace to his mind. I'm glad to see you're safe, Midoriya-san, the voice of Itsuka said, the redhead having a small smile on her face while Thorn stood next to her. Honestly, Kendo-san, I'm surprised my knees haven't given out yet. Thorn? Rex? I can't thank you two enough. You really saved my bacon today, he said to his two brothers and the redhead, before doing a double take-back at the representative of his sister class and his brother. Wait a minute. Why are you two together at the mall? Both of them immediately began to blush and stutter out excuses. He's helping me out, Dash. Supplies for the training camp, Dash. Advice on some things, Dash. You know how it is, Dash. Izuku looked back and forth between the both of them, and an idea popped in his head as he slowly began to smirk, especially knowing how much the VOD gave him grief over Ochako. So, you Keldabe her yet? What? Kendo asked in confusion. What? Thorn asked in shock. Izuku cackled before taking a relaxed expression. I'm glad that my brothers have found such good friends even outside of 1A. The world needs more people like you, Kendo. Kendo flushed slightly but nodded in thanks. Izuku then turned to Thorn and took a more serious expression. I don't know what's up between you, but whatever it is, be careful, all right? We don't know how the world would react to something like this, but who am I to deny my brothers making bonds of their own? He spoke in Mandoe with Thorn nodding in agreement. I know. I don't know either, but for now I'm content in just letting things play out. Izuku nodded and patted his shoulder before having his attention grabbed by Tsukachi, who needed to ask him some questions before he and the others could return to UA. Mustafesu Police Station. The two battalions of clones would be standing outside of the police station, conversing with each other and the students, while Kyuka was listening to Denki telling her more about his childhood. Inside of the station, however, Izuku was currently sitting and sipping a cup of tea to help him calm his nerves, while Tsukachi sat across from him, giving him time to collect himself properly. I honestly can't imagine what's going through your mind right now, but we need to know what happened. Right, just calming my nerves. I admit, I didn't expect to see him so soon. Sure, he might have been at Hosu, but I didn't see him. I know. Toshi and Aizawa are on the way. Better prepare yourself for the bear hug of the century, though. Honestly, a bear hug would be more than welcome right about now, Izuku said, shuddering at the memories from not even an hour ago flashing through his head. Not even a moment later, the door burst open, revealing Tashinori and Shoyuta in the doorway, the former quickly waltzing over to the freckled teen and picked him up in a tight hug. I'm so glad you're safe. Herg, I'm glad to see you too, Beer, Izuku gasped out. Beer, you're crushing me. Whoops. Sorry, my boy. Tashinori sheepishly apologized as he put him down. It's fine, geez. I didn't think you'd be so strong in your skinny form. Tsukachi chuckled, and even Aizawa gave a quick huff of amusement. What happened? That's what we're about to go over. Gentlemen? Tsukachi motioned toward the table where they soon sat down and began the questioning. Normally, we'd need parental permission since you're a minor. But since you already have your license and we're a direct participant for this hero investigation, it's not necessary. I'm saying this because I'm legally obliged to. That sounds kinda sketchy. Just one of the many things spearheaded by the HPSC. Fortunately, we do care about hero students, which is why we still spoke with your mother. She agreed even if it was a moot point. Oh, that's nice to hear. All right, in your words, can you describe the events that led to your encounter, the encounter itself, and what happened after? Tsukachi asked as he took out some equipment. All right, I was with Ochako and Eri. We were walking out of a hero merch store, which reminds me that I have to talk to Nizu. What for? I have merch. Aizawa blinked in shock while Tashinori started to smile widely. All right, tabling that for later. Continue, please, Tsukachi said, honestly quite surprised yet happy for the boy. Kyoka, that is Jairu Kyoka, a good friend of ours, came running to us and told me to come quickly due to an emergency. I left Eri with Ochako and made my way to where I found Shigaraki with his arm over Ashido Mina's shoulder and his hand on her throat, one pinky off to avoid disintegrating her. Knowing how murderous he is from what you've told us from the USJ, what stopped him from disintegrating her when Jairu was getting you? Well, he said he wanted to talk to me, plus Rex, one of my clones, held him at gunpoint. Izuku then began to think about some other factors. Plus, he just seemed off in general. Different from the USJ. There he was frantic, maniacal. He had a tantrum when things didn't go his way. He was a man-child pretty much. Izuku swallowed as some unwanted memories started to come back, but Nana was quick to support him. So what I assume is that here he was calm, composed and calculating, choosing a place where there would be a lot of civilians, so none of you would be able to strike without causing a panic and causing potential civilian casualties. Tsukachi asked, to which the freckled teen nodded. It was scary how much of a different person he seemed. And he still treated everything like a video game by calling my brothers NPCs, saying he was taking the stealth route today, and even called me his player too. Tashinori hummed grimly. You found a villain that considers you a rival. I've met my fair share of glory hounds who've tried to be the same, but none could live up to it. Damn. He's fixated on me, isn't he? He told me that he wouldn't kill me, even offered me to join him, though I think that was a joke. Somewhat. Felt like it was taken straight out of a movie. This is troublesome. Now that he's fixated on you, he might also go after your classmates. That's what I'm afraid of. Since I've indirectly dragged them into this mess, I need to do my best to help them to protect themselves even better than they already can. I noticed that Kaminari had some new accessories. Care to explain that? Apparently he joined the VOD when they received the alert, and they gave him that. The helmet's now connected to him. It could be reset, but I think it'd be good for him to have the armor for them all too. Aizawa hummed in thought as he considered it. We'd have to bring it up with Powerloader, since he's in charge of the support course and the liaison for the actual support companies. This also all depends on whether or not your classmates accept, but having extra protection is a very logical thing to worry about. I also need to ask 1B. We may not be in the same class, but they're still my classmates. And many of my brothers have made good friends with several of them. Some are even considered part of the VOD, he said, while preparing a notebook for the armor designs for his classmates if they wanted a set, customization, modifications, weapons, gadgets, everything. Let's continue with the questioning first. What happened next? I tried to get him to let her go, but he refused. So I offered to take her place. Izuku. Tashinori gasped. Problem child. Aizawa face-bombed. I know, but I couldn't let her stay like that. After that, I told them to leave and Rex called in reinforcements. And after? Shigaraki questioned me. He wanted answers. Answers? Yeah. He was annoyed and frustrated because he wasn't getting recognition for Hosu. That all the focus was on Stain and me. Tsukachi slightly tilted his head in confusion. What did you say then? He wanted nothing more than destruction, and that any villain could do that. He lacked a purpose, like Stain. Before I knew it, he was laughing, talking about All Might. He asked about our relationship, but I diverted the conversation. Both Tashinori and Aizawa looked at each other in concern. I also feel that I need to bring this up. He talked a lot about hypocrisy and heroes and their failures. I hate that Izuku shut his mouth with a click and grimaced as he began to tap his fingers on his leg. Izuku? He said, well, actually I told him about what I understood from Stain's ideals, about how he wanted to create a world of true heroes. He replied by saying that it's when people need them most that they fail to live up to those ideals, and a part of me can't help but wonder, what led him to this life? Izuku looked at the scars that crossed over his hands from when he overloaded at the USJ. A stark reminder of his mistakes and failures. Yet, I hate him. I hate him so much for what happened to Django, the Lost Legion, my friends. But I couldn't help but sympathize with him. Does that make me? It makes you human, my boy, Tashinori interrupted as he laid his hand on his shoulder. And it shows how pure of a heart you hold, that even feeling such hatred, and rightfully so, you could show the compassion to show even a little sympathy to your enemy shows an emotional maturity beyond your years. Aizawa sighed. Yagi's right. You're still just a kid, Midoriya. Yeah, you and your brothers have been through a lot, but you're still kids. This isn't a topic that's covered for first years. It's usually saved for third years, illogically so. I believe that you should understand this as soon as possible. Aizawa sighed again and leaned back against his chair, his eyes staring beyond the ceiling. Sometimes villains are villains, monsters that just want to watch the world burn for no rhyme or reason. Sometimes they're just broken people, lashing out at the world, or simply at the end of their rope and can't see another way out. I've met my fair share of villains, and when I could, I tried to help them, Tashinori said as he recalled some past experiences. Sometimes they accepted it, many times they didn't. Toshi's right, Midoriya, Tsukachi said as he scribbled some things down onto a notepad. You've got a good heart, never lose that. We're not saying that you have to make nice with Shigaraki, or forgive him or anything, but never lose that compassion of yours. That is one of the main things making you, well, you. If your compassion leads to the chance of somebody taking the path towards the light, use it. You will not only save their life, but also the lives of those who would have been affected by them. They're right, Izuku, Nana said from the mindscape. However unlikely the scenario, every person deserves the opportunity for redemption. Without that hope, we may never achieve lasting peace. I want to help all of us become the next pillars that Japan, no, the world can rely on, he said, as he looked at them all, seriousness and determination brimming in his eyes. All three of them looked at him with pride, before continuing the investigation. After that, he let me go and moved closer to the crowd, so I couldn't go after him. He disappeared into the crowd, and my guess is that Kurojiiri warped him away. I see. You would be correct. We found no trace of him after. No sign of him leaving the mall. Nothing. HRMM. After that, I almost lost myself in my panic, but I was able to snap out of it. When I came to, my brothers were there, and the police were arriving. Tsukachi gave a final nod and ended the questioning. Fortunately, he was the last one to be questioned for the day, so they could finally go home. As Izuku walked out with Tashinori and was immediately found by his friends. Izuku. VOD. Izuku smiled brightly as he was hugged by his friends and family. It was relieving. Peeling himself away, his eye was caught by Ashido, who was looking at him in relief. Walking towards her, She tried to say something but was cut off by the tight hug he gave her. I'm so glad you're safe. I should be saying the same thing to you, Mina replied as she hugged him back. Izuku separated himself from her and looked at all of his friends that had appeared. Ochako, Tinya, Kyoka, Yuga, Momo, Tsuyu, and now Kaminari and Ishido. Even Shoto and Kendo had come by. These were the people that he'd grown to care about, and more from his class. These were his friends, some old, some new, but they were his brothers and sisters. I'm glad that I have you all with me, Nvyode, he said as he looked each of them in the eye. And as he looked down to see Eri tugging at his pants, he smiled brightly at her and picked her up. Especially you, Sakurai Ka. Turning back to his friends, he led the way out of the station. There's a lot we need to talk about. Come on, let's go home. The clones had already started to make their way back to the school. Unfortunately, Kaminari was not allowed back on the ART by Aizawa, who stipulated that if he truly wanted to get back on it, he would have to bring his grades up and get qualified by a supervised instruction course from a teacher. The sheer determination in his eyes almost instantly made Aizawa regret even entertaining the option of Kaminari riding one of the walkers again. They decided to stop by a cafe to cool down from the day. Eri was currently sitting on Izuku's lap drinking some chocolate milk, while everybody else had their own assortments of drinks and foods. You know, we're going to go over this once we go back to school, and maybe Aizawa will address it during the summer camp. But well, the VOD, and I want to help you guys out. With what, Izuku? Ochako asked first. Protection, and I don't mean bodyguards, I mean body armor. Let's face it, a lot of your guys' costumes offer practically no protection at all, and armor gets disintegrated first, he said as he started to stare at his plate, his jaw clenching as he recalled the USJ. A few blinked at the odd phrasing but quickly caught on, a few shivering. If it could buy just a few extras, I'll do it. Izuku popped his head up and stared at Ochako, who was looking at him with fierce determination. I mean, I originally wanted my costume to be puffier like 13's, but I can get behind some armor, on one condition. Name it, he said with a grin. You help me paint it. Don't think I haven't noticed the VODE start painting their armor. Done. I already have some armor, but I would not be opposed to having it reviewed again, Yuga said with a softer smile than normal. I may already have armor, but I would love to have something from the VODE, Tinya added. You can already count me in. No way am I giving up my helmet. Plus, looking at my costume now, it looks more like an outfit meant for more day-to-day tasks rather than a hero costume. I'm with Jammingway on this one. Both of us do look more like punks than anything else. Plus, more armor means more speakers, so I'm not complaining. Well, I've already seen Monk wearing armor and being able to swim extremely fast. Karo. I would love to, but I'm not sure how well it would work with my quirk, Momo sheepishly said, and Izuku nodded as he began to plan how to work things out. As long as I can keep my flexibility, anything to help against that creep is fine by me, Mina said, slowly getting some of her bounce back. Izuku turned towards the last person in their group whose head was bowed low. Todoroki? I appreciate your offer, but I do not believe myself worthy of such a gift. Todoroki, I still have much to atone for. Their blood still stains my hands. I can't accept any such gift until I know every one of your brothers have forgiven me. An odd feeling began to swirl up in Izuku's chest as he began to feel his brethren surge beneath him. Subconsciously, in fact almost against his will, one for all began to slightly surge beneath his skin, illuminating his eyes and causing sparks to appear. The VODE needed to speak, and speak they would. Todoroki Shoto, you have made a grievous mistake, blinded by hatred. You caused the deaths of some of our brothers. The multitude of voices spoke as one, using Izuku as a focus, much to the surprise of all. Yes, I have, Shoto replied, head still bowed. But you are not the same boy as that day. You have shown your dedication in your search for forgiveness. You have changed, and in doing so, we have already forgiven you. Todoroki's eyes began to fill with unshed tears. Wear our armor, if not to protect yourself, then as a reminder to always be better. The voices spoke, small shadowy figures seemingly coming from the energy of the quirk, with several of them seeming to make a salute motion. Very well, Shoto replied, peace filling him. Though the guilt remained, and always would, he would strive to become a better hero, someone worthy of wearing that armor. Someone better than that man. Izuku gasped as the power left him, utterly drained from the experience. I didn't know your brothers could do that. Neither did I, and I'd appreciate a little warning next time. Various apologies rang out from the mindscape, and Izuku accepted them well enough, but he was still left exhausted. Ori VOD, from what I've gathered, several of the students from 1B have wished to have armor like ours from day one. Amongst them I've noticed VOD Tokage, VOD Kodai, VOD Tsuburaba, VOD Hiryu, VOD Aways, VOD Kaibara, and VOD Tsunatori. Thorn said as he counted the other students whom he observed had wanted the phase armor ever since they saw it. Monoma only looks at it in disgust though, but we all knew that to begin with. I should still ask them personally though, otherwise they may think I pity them, so it would be best to come in person. As long as I can ignore Monoma's gloating, that is. What about Eri? Shouldn't we also at least give her a communicator? Ochako inquired, referring to the little unicorn currently blowing bubbles in her chocolate milk. Well, I'd need to make one for her size then, and making armor for kids is a bit, well, how do I put it? It sorta makes one think of child soldiers. Aren't we technically child soldiers by most countries' standards though? Denki inquired with a raised brow. Before he could say anything else though, Hyuka jabbed him with one of her jacks. There's a time and place for things like this, idiot. This is not one of them. I still have to talk things over, and there is still much to be done. But I'm glad that you guys accept the extra protection, he said to them, receiving smiles from all of his friends and brothers, before turning to Itsuka. What about you, Kendo-san? As tempting as it sounds, I must decline for now. I kinda want to test my own costume and medal in battle, just to be completely sure, but I'm honored by the offer, she replied with a bow. Understandable. I'd probably feel the same way too if I was in your shoes, he said with a sheepish grin. Let's head back to UA. The others must be worried sick by now, Tenya said with a small chop of his arm as the others nodded and Eri finished her beverage with a small burp as Izuku picked her up to carry her, with the group starting to head back towards the school that they called home. Returning to campus, they found several students waiting for them from all of the courses, but with the most prominent ones being the ones from the hero course, minus Bakugu and Monoma. Hey everyone. What are you all doing out here? We literally saw a small army move out from here only about 2 hours ago. What do you think? Right? That sort of thing would garner the attention of the entire school. Izuku lamented slightly. However, before he could mope any further, a pink and black blur rushed over and crashed into him. Armor guy number 1. What were those babies I saw sprinting out of the main gate? I must see them. Those things are amazing feats of technology. May practically screeched as she shook him back and forth. Wah. Who are you? Izuku yelped as he felt like he was in between two bumper cars with all of the violent shaking. Hey, let go of him, Ochako said, as she came over and put the other woman in a full Nelson, attempting to drag her away from the dazed Greenet, while the several hundred clones either snickered or felt like they needed to teach this girl a lesson in respecting personal space. Hey, you can't stand between me and my creative genius. Besides, at least you can show me how they work after adapting my designs so much. That made Izuku pause. Hold on. You're the one who created my brother and I's armor. At that May paused, but an odd look appeared in her eyes, regret. Izuku walked forward, and she was let go by Ochako. I never did get a chance to thank you. Your armor saved my life at the USJ. May looked away, the maniacal excitation draining from her frame. It's not good enough. It failed to save the other one. Izuku blinked, feeling that he was seeing something familiar. She reminds me of me. On the contrary, it was due to your armor that my brother lasted long enough to give me the chance to save our friends. It was still imperfect. There's still room to improve, to be better to dash. Izuku grabbed his shoulders. Do you honestly believe that you could create something that could withstand All Might's level of strength?
No.
But you did. It was a glancing blow, but he was able to give us the extra few seconds to drive off the villains and kill the monster that did him in. The girl looked at him with trembling eyes, and Izuku could see that she had been blaming herself for creating such an inferior product in her mind. I recognize you from the sports festival. You created all those tools and modified that tank. Truly you have a gift, if you can avoid those explosions. The girl chuckled. All part of the manufacturing process. Izuku chuckled as well. Now, I'd love to show you some of our equipment, but it's going to have to be another day. We've had quite a long one today. Dropping his hands from her shoulders, he led her back to the lab where some other support students were also doing things during their weekend hours. His friends followed behind at a slower pace, and they soon met up with Power Loader. Oh, there you are. I was wondering where you went scampering off to. Ah, how are you, Midoriya? I'm doing fine, Power Loader. Just helping to clear some things up. All right then. Aizawa spoke to me earlier about your ideas. We'll get started on the forms and stuff, but it'll have to wait till after the summer camp. That's good to hear. My friends have already agreed, but I still need to ask one. B. If it's not too much to ask, I'd like her to be a part of the process. Both of them blinked. Are you sure? Surprisingly enough, both of them asked the same question. The armor that she originally designed has done wonders for the VOD, with us even expanding upon it. It saved my life at the USJ, and now that I think about it, Stain, it seems only fitting. Her eyes shone brightly with appreciation, and she began to vibrate in joy. Hatsum May, CEO of Hatsum Enterprises, at your service, she said giddily, extending her arm out for a handshake. Izuku smiled and took her hand to shake. Midoriya Izuku, rising symbol of hope, Mandalore and leader of the VOD. We are under your care, Goran Hatsum. Hatsum smiled, but it dimmed slightly. Your brother, what was his name? I struggle with names, she admitted with some remorse. Django. Django, Hatsum muttered as she turned and entered the lab to continue her work. Tamura hummed a little song under his breath as he walked back into the bar. He didn't know where it came from, only that it was from long ago, long before his memories shattered. Kurogyri. The misty bartender nodded and passed him a drink. Where are the others? Out in the city, they're keeping a low profile. Good. The TV at the end of the bar turned on and his master's voice rang out. And how was your little walk, Tamura? It was enlightening. My player 2 is perfect, I think. I finally understand, Sensei. Oh? Sensei asked, intrigued. Yeah, this world, built on false idols, can't just be destroyed. It needs to be rebuilt. To what? I still don't know, but I think I'm getting close to an answer. Sensei chuckled behind the screen. Good. You're finally learning, finally growing into what I know you can be. Prepare yourself, my boy. I have new things to reveal to you, now that you are ready to receive them. Thank you, Master. All for One grinned as he settled back down on his chair. The brat is finally growing, eh? Indeed. It seems that All Might's successor has been most instrumental to his growth. I must show my thanks. The doctor chuckled. What next, my lord? Wolfram is planning to go to Island. Summon him to me, and how about we contact our old friend Tyazuki? That brute? I have a feeling he will be most interested in Mandalore. All for One chuckled some more as he looked at the picture of Izuku Midoriya. Soon we will finally meet again, one for all. He moves another piece on the chessboard, but doesn't take anything. Overhaul was frustrated. Months of work, setback due to the brat finally managing to escape. And who else but into the arms of Mandalore, the golden boy of UA. You didn't think to bring her back? Are you also going against the wishes of Overhaul?
No.
Enough. He'd grown tired of the arguing. You did well to bring this to me first. Mandalore is not a threat to be taken lightly. He took down our crew in Hosu, and that was mere hours after defeating Stain, plus he has All Might and UA in his corner. Not to mention his spreading infected. Overhaul growled under his breath. We must bide our time. Return the majority of our resources to Trigger, keep an eye out, but do not engage. We cannot hope to stand the fury of All Might at this moment. We must be patient. Nevertheless, bring me a whole or a quarter. I wish for a message to be delivered. Yes, Overhaul. Izuku was currently resting and drawing with Eri in his home before a knock at the door made him get up to answer it. "Hello, my boy." "Oh, hey, Beer. What's up?" Izuku asked as he let Toshinori enter. The gaunt man quickly greeted Eri and shouted off a greeting to Inko, who replied from the kitchen. "That reminds me. We really should tell him soon. I'll leave it for later." "Izuku, I recently got an email from the daughter of an old friend of mine. She sent me tickets to the Expo, and I was hoping that you would join me." "Hold up, Expo, the greatest scientific/heroic convention in the world? And you got us tickets?" Izuku excitedly asked.
Yep. Yes.
"Be sure to bring some security, though. The fans can get a bit wild," Toshinori said, having had first-hand experience with fans countless times throughout his career. "I will. Oh man, what should I pack? What should I wear? Do I need a haircut for this? Am I even qualified to set foot on Dash?" He soon fell into a mutter spree, something he hadn't done in a while. Toshinori merely chuckled as he watched Izuku begin to fret. "Wait." He stopped with a gasp. "What about Beer and Eri?" Toshinori grinned. "Well, I was able to ask and I got us 2 more tickets. Enough for all of us to go." Eri yelped as she was picked up by Izuku and brought into a hug and spun in a circle as he began to mutter even faster. When she was put down, her head was slightly spinning and she was pretty sure her eyes were rolling, but she felt something very warm bubble up in her chest, and the corners of her lips were raised ever so slightly. Author. And that's the end of that. As you can see, we're already heading into uncharted territory for Island. Again, the next chapter will take a while to come out since we'll be going full movie-sized, but we hope that you enjoyed this. Also, don't forget our reference competition. Send me your PMS with all the references you catch since the beginning of Legion. The winner will be announced in the next chapter, and we'll get to name a clone. Again, thank you all for your support. Until next time, OYA. Chapter 24. Rise of Mandalore. Notice, make sure you read Daily Lives of the Clones. Blitz before you read this chapter. Legion. Rise of Mandalore. Fear not for the future. Weep not for the past. The Night Owls, Hoot, you and 3 others are online. Mandalore. Everyone guess who's going to the Expo. The preview too. Tinya and Froppy are online. Uravity, Shoto, and 3 others are typing. Uravity. Okay, Izuku-kun, I know you are decent enough off, but not loaded, and tickets like those aren't cheap. What's your secret? B. Shoto. I can always use my father's credit card to pay for them. Tinya. Todoroki-san. That is highly irresponsible, not to mention contradictory on how to behave as an aspiring hero student. Chopping emoji. Shoto. Tinya. Please accept my apology, Todoroki-kun. I'm not fully awake at this time of day, so therefore I typed the reply before I was able to think about the consequences of my choice of words. I apologize. Edited. Beslar is typing. Mandalore. Tinya, I love you, but did you just use a chopping emoji followed by a Dejiza emoji? Beslar. Also, you do know that the Dejiza emoji doesn't mean what it really means, right? Tinya. What do you mean? Beslar. Check your DMS. Tinya. I see your point. I have now changed it. I apologize. Ochako. Wait. What does a Dejiza mean?
Beslar. No. Tenya. No.
Jamming Way. Wait. Expo? That's so cool. Mandalore. Wait. Kaminari-san. Isn't that the nickname that Kyuka uses to make fun of you? Jamming Way. Well, I don't exactly sense any malice from her when she calls me it, so I've grown a bit fond of it. Plus, my little sister loves it susu. Mandalore. Wait, you have a sister? Jamming Way. Yep. There is also my mom who's a hero. She also finds it funny and even cute. Uravity. I just saw Beslar is typing before it blanked out. Anything you want to say?
Beslar. No.
Uravity. You Suyur? Beslar. Yes. Froppy. Spill the beans, Ribbit.
Beslar. No.
Froppy. Do it. Jamming Way. Speaking of sisters, Froppy, didn't you say that you had siblings too? Maybe we can set up a playdate or something with Eri. Multiple people are typing. Froppy. That sounds like a good idea, Ribbit. Satsuki and Samidare need some new playmates. Mandalore, I think that it'd be great for Eri. Beslar, I have no words. Jamming Way, for what? Beslar, none of your business. Jamming Way, mean, Uravity. Anyway, how did you get tickets, Izuku? Mandalore, Beer got them for us. He's got connections with Island. Shoto, you mean All Might, right? Multiple people are typing. Mandalore, Shoto, we've talked about your conspiracy theories. Tenya, right. You must mean Mr. Yagi, your stepfather? Mandalore, he's not exactly my stepdad, but filled in? Now you are? Let us shift the focus back to the topic at hand. Monsieur Izuku? Mandalore, anyway, yeah, we got tickets. Jamming Way, oh, that's right. I forgot to mention, but I got a temp job there thanks to UA's connections. I work some shifts, and then I get to see the expo. Uravity, that's cool. I wasn't going to mention this, but Momo got Kyoka and I tickets. We had to win a bet, though. Froppy, I still say you cheated. Uravity, we did not. Froppy, keep telling yourselves that. Ribbit, Beslar, oh, put a sock in it, Sue. You're just jealous that you didn't get to go. It's not like it's even that special. Ali 3N Chu 33N. No. You do not get to say that, Kyoka. You still won.
Beslar, Smon, Mina.
Ali 3N Chu 33N. I will not. I'm going to miss so much tea like this. How do I know if some romance won't blossom during this event? Huh. Beslar. There won't be anything like that. What do you think this is? A rom-com anime? Straight face. Ali 3N Chu 33N. Don't think I haven't noticed how you act around Kaminari and how you seem to listen in on his conversations when he talks to other girls, Yutsundara. Beslar has gone offline. Ali 3N Chu 33N, as I thought. Beslar has gone online. Ali 3N Chu 33N. Oh, Beslar. Don't think I didn't see you clutching onto Rex like a plushy doll. You were practically all over him. Ali 3N Chu 33N. That was a very stressful moment. And you didn't deny it. Beslar. Neither are you. And I'm not talking about the mall. I'm talking about the past few days. Excuse me, Captain. You certainly like a man in uniform, don't you? Ali 3N Chu 33N has gone offline. Jamming Way. Wait. Weren't they all at that one cafe? Beslar has gone offline. Froppy has gone offline. Yamamo has gone offline. Uravity has gone offline. Invisible Girl. I'm still here, but I'm tucked away in the corner. I just hope we don't get kicked out. The next morning, Eri stared wide-eyed outside the plane's window. In fact, it was all that she paid attention to throughout their entire flight. Izuku had to call her attention multiple times so that she could remember to eat and drink. Still, it's nice to see her so fascinated by this. Maybe if I can get Legion to create something with flight capabilities, I can take her on a flight. Well, there are the jetpacks we've developed, Nana said in his head. After the Wing Nomu incident where said beast took off with one of their brothers, the engineers inside of the Mindscape had worked tirelessly to give their brothers the capabilities of flight. Yet so far, didn't have any luck. I said flight, be a beer, not crash and burn. You know I love the engineers, but the last time I was on a jetpack I slammed into the ceiling. You know, Django had a jetpack from that handsome girl. Maybe we should ask her? Multiple voices inside his head said no, primarily because they wanted to figure it out themselves. Typical. There were always those of his brothers with more pride, who for some reason always found themselves within the engineering core. I should bring a couple more engineers out to check out the support course. Power Loader could certainly use the help, he muttered as the plane kept on coursing through the air. How do you like the flight, Thorn? Izuku asked with a smarmy grin to the clone who currently refused to even look at him. Izuku, why is Thorn mad at you? Have you been fighting? Did I do something wrong? The little unicorn asked, worry starting to fill her voice, as she thought she may have been at fault. Before Izuku could say anything, Thorn spoke up. It's not your fault, Eri. It's just VOD really caught me at an unfortunate time. What happened? Please, she said, as she hopped down from her seat and waddled over to him, making puppy eyes in the process.
All right, fine.
A few hours ago. Thorn, where are you? I need to ask you something. Izuku called out as he walked around campus searching for his brother, whom he had decided would head with him to Island as the chief of security, along with a few of his other brothers from the guard. Hearing the sound of giggling, he turned and blinked in surprise as he saw Thorn leaning over Kendo as they whispered some words to each other. Thorn then walked back and put on his helmet before gently tapping it against her forehead, with the redhead returning the gesture. They stayed like that for some time, until Izuku had to cough while also taking a picture of the scene. The sound of the cough and click of his phone's camera snapping them out of their Tinder moment.
Vevot.
Midoriya. Definitely let things play out, huh? The freckled teen said with the smuggest grin he had ever mustered as he leaned against a wall, looking at the picture on his phone. Gee, give me that. Thorn exclaimed as he jumped towards his older brother and tried snatching the device out of his hand to no avail due to the former having had to dodge Bakuga's explosions, kicks, and punches for years, making him quite elusive. This is payback for the time back at the start of the internships. Izuku cackled, still dodging his brother's attempt at getting his phone, while Kendo seemed to have a mental meltdown, if her tomato red face and steam shooting off her head was any indicator. A few minutes of back and forth later, Thorn had given up trying to get the phone so he could delete the picture, instead opting to just grumble about hating karma right now. Anyhow, back on topic. I came to ask if you would want to come with me to the Expo as security along with Fordo and Rex. Expo? What business do we even have on an artificial island? One making some of the best support gear nonetheless, he asked, curious as to why they were going. Well, Beer has some connections there, plus a lot of our friends will be there too, and who knows? We may come home with new gadgets, Izuku said with excitement, while also being able to sense the same, yet more subtle feeling coming from his brother too. Fine, but you better delete that photo. I shall think about it.
Dankfertig.
Back to the present. And that's about it, Thorn finished, before looking outside of the window again, a slightly longing look in his eyes. Eri, on the other hand, tilted her head as she looked from Thorn to Izuku. Why won't you give him the picture? He did agree to come with you. Please don't be mean, she said, surprisingly gaining a slightly stern tone, making the occupants of the plane look shocked at what they heard. It's a bit complicated, somewhat of a sibling thing. To this, Eri only pouted, making it harder and harder for Izuku to resist, until he finally caved in. Fine. Here you go, VOD, he sighed while handing the phone over to the clone, who took it out of his hands and went straight to the picture to delete it, but not before secretly sending it to himself so he could use it as a holographic pin-up in his helmet. After giving him the phone back, one of the clones in the plane stood up from his seat and leaned forward. So, Ori VOD, may I ask why you specifically chose us? I mean, I can see your reasoning with Fordo, Rex, and Thorn, but why us? 2010 inquired in curiosity. Well, I wanted to give you some more time to have some fun outside of your shifts, and you really deserve to get outside of campus more. Many of the others have been able to thanks to internships, but barely any of you have left school grounds since the sports festival. Izuku smiled at them, while giving him a thumbs up. Isn't our main objective to be security, though? Another clone asked while tilting his head. Who says you can't do both at the same time? Plus, I feel like this will also be a good experience for some of you who haven't been able to do much recently. Well, I guess you got a point, 2010 said as he got back into his seat. While most of the clones were chatting amongst each other, the one sitting next to Inko was currently napping with his helmet on, while the loving Midoriya matriarch gently caressed the top of the helmet. Could you please quiet down, boys? Someone is trying to sleep here, she whispered and gestured to the slightly shorter clone in the seat next to her. Truth be told, Izuku wasn't sure why he had a technically underdeveloped clone, but Rookie was quickly warming up to everybody even if he did have what everybody else called a baby face. I didn't look like that when I was 12, did I? He thought to himself, as he looked over at his mother humming a lullaby for Rookie. To all passengers, we'll be landing in 5 minutes, so please buckle up. The voice of the pilot said over the comms, as Expo came into view in the distance, Eri letting out a gasp of surprise and wonder. Alrighty boys, get ready for a trip like none other, Toshinori said as the plane quickly closed the distance from their current location to the artificial island. Quickly landing on the bay and getting their luggage, Izuku was quick to take Eri by the hand as she shyly looked away from the crowd of people. Fortunately, they were in a relatively private section of the airport, and were able to reach the main complex of the island unbothered, even with Toshinori bulking up. They excitedly stared out at the various attractions and exhibits, technology beyond regular imagination as far as the eye could see. Unfortunately, All Might's presence caught some rather unwanted attention. I told him to wait until later to bulk up, Izuku thought as he saw his beer getting swarmed by fans. He then shivered as he felt a dark aura radiate from his mother as she stared at the multitude of women practically throwing themselves at him. Keep yourselves at a distance, people. You can look all you want, but no touching, Thorn said, as he, Rex and Fordo along with their brothers formed a circle around their family, creating a scene that looked like it came straight from Hollywood when a celebrity arrived, which it technically was, considering just how well-known All Might was. All Might.
Menelo.
Is this a family outing?
What?
Mandalore. What's your connection with All Might? Wait a minute, Dash. Are you Mandalore's mother? I Dash. Are all of you her biological sons? Do I really look like I could give birth to Dash? Mandalore. Are you All Might's secret love child? Oh, for crying.
No.
Todoroki, if you're behind this, we need to have a talk. Rookie, on the other hand, seemingly clung more to Inko, being much more of a shy kid like how Izuku used to be before Django came into the world. The ring their brothers had formed was effective. However, it still wasn't enough to stop a young girl from using her quirk to stretch out her arms and grab a hold of Rookie's helmet, before pulling it off his head while making a yoink sound. The crowd immediately went quiet as they took in the visage of the revealed clone. He's so cute. Are they all this adorable? Only one way to find out. Before they knew it, helmets were suddenly being pulled off left and right, much to their owner's chagrin. Oh my gosh. So many handsome faces. All of you must really score, eh? All of them suddenly shivered as an even darker aura erupted out of Inko, who stepped forward. I believe that we need to have a talk about personal boundaries. Now that we're finished, don't you all have something to say? Inko asked cheerily. We're sorry. Thank you. Now come along, dears. Let's head on to our destination, Inko said as she picked Eri up with a hum and guided the clones away, all of them with their helmets back on. Izuku and Toshinori looked at her before looking at each other and shuddered. Let's get a move on then, shall we, my boy? Yep, best not keep her waiting, Izuku said, and they followed their family. Not even 5 minutes later, however, for the traumatized crowd, did they realize what was said. Wait a minute, dears? My boy. All Might really does have a secret family. After finally escaping the crowd of fans, the group breathed out a collective sigh of relief as they finally had some breathing room while sitting on the benches around the park. Oh, Rex dear, we need to have a talk, Inko said in a sweet tone. However, each of them knew that it was anything but sweet. Why yes, B-Beer? Will you please tell me just what you have done with your hair? The noticeably annoyed woman asked with a smile on her face and closed eyes. Well, you see, Dash. And don't think any of you are out of the frying pan. What have you done with your hair? Mohawks? Crew cuts?
Bald?
Coloring? She nearly screeched the last word, if it wasn't for her calm demeanor, which didn't exactly help due to the menacing aura she was emitting. Hey, it's not that bad. At least I didn't get a tattoo like Five Zoops. A what? A tattoo. It's a stylized 5, Rex admitted, unable to keep the secret anymore. And where is this tattoo? On his temple. Inko opened her eyes again and looked at her sons, each having hair that collectively made them look like a palette. We just wanted to look a bit different. We all have the same face. It'd be nice to have something that makes us original, you know? Fordo said while also using Rex as a human shield. Looking around at her boys again, Inko took a deep breath and sighed. It's not that I don't understand where you're coming from. It's more that none of you thought about telling me again, she said, reminding them of the time where Django and Izuku had kept Bakuga's abuse a secret from her too. Please forgive us, Beer, but we were afraid that you wouldn't approve of this. Oh, my boys, there's so much that we'll have to talk about. It's not that I don't approve, But you simply should have told me. And to be quite frank, those haircuts aren't the best, she said, with the last comment causing several of them to face fault. Before they could discuss the hair and tattoo situation any further, though, a voice called out to Toshinori. Uncle Might. Turning as one, the group saw a blonde girl with glasses wearing khaki pants and a buttoned shirt running towards them while waving, a huge smile on her face. Melissa, look at how much you've grown. Already a beautiful, young woman, Toshinori said with a laugh as he lifted the girl into the air and spun her around a couple of times like one would with their daughter, both of the blondes laughing as he did so. It's been so long, Uncle. I can't believe you're actually here. I'm truly grateful for the invitation and the extra tickets. Hearing that, Melissa's eyes narrowed much to everybody's confusion, especially All Might's. Melissa? And just when were you going to tell us that you had a secret family? What? The entire group asked in shock. Melissa then flicked her wrist, and a hologram popped up showing a picture of the entire group. All Might's secret family? Hidden connection with Imandi Lor? Well, this is both unexpected and unsurprising at the same time, All Might said, thinking back to the crowd from before who most likely were the ones guilty of the rumor spreading. I'm so sorry, Inko whispered as a comically depressed aura emanated from her. It's fine, Inko, to be honest, Melissa. I only met the Midoriyas a few months ago, but I found myself being a part of their family before I even realized it. Izuku and Inko both smiled at him, the latter winking at having kept their little secret. I still need a bit more time before revealing to Izuku the truth, Inko thought to herself, slightly guilty about it, but at the same time, she didn't want to distract him. Oh, that's nice to hear, actually. I'm glad that you found a family of your own, Uncle Might. On that note, introductions. Everyone, this is Melissa Shield, the daughter of my good friend David Shield. All Might began as he presented her before presenting them to her. Melissa, this is Inko, Izuku, Little Eri, alongside a few of the VOD, that is, some of Izuku's clones, Fordo, Rex, Thorn, Rookie, and, I'm sorry, do you have a name yet? All Might asked. Not yet, sir. I'm still 2010. 2010 then. More than 1,000 new people. It's honestly amazing how UA managed to be able to get enough food and housing for so many new mouths to feed in such a short notice. Not to mention the capacity to make full-body armor like this, Melissa said to herself, as she observed the clones and Izuku, along with their armor and weaponry, seemingly analyzing them. Considering how UA is most likely run by the devil himself, who's an animal of ambiguous origin and species, it's best to not think too much into it. One of the unnamed clones muttered as he shuddered at the thought of how the principal did what he did. Besides, the armor actually comes as a part of my quirk, Izuku said, and she began to closely inspect it. Really? Well, the armor for the VOD, this set came from the support course, most of it at least. I think a few pieces had to be replaced. She went over each part with great scrutiny, many observations coming to mind. It's very well done considering the material. Even has a few support items in terms of communications and medical gear. She then paused as she took in the scars on his face that trailed down his neck. Are those scars from that thing from the USJ? She asked, treading carefully in the minefield she knew she was currently traversing. Seeing how she didn't try to be rude or prying, but genuinely wanted to know out of concern and curiosity, Izuku took in a deep breath before letting it out as a sigh. They're luckily not from a direct hit from the Kirima Demagalka killer monster, but rather me overexerting my quirk to its absolute limit when I summoned my brothers. She hummed in thought as she inspected the rest of his armor. Melissa, how do you know about the USJ? All Might asked in slight confusion. Oh, well, the remains of it were sent here to be studied to more accurately determine what exactly had been done to its original source, she shuddered. Despite there only being small chunks of the thing left, it was still unnerving. Anyway, yeah, I basically spiked my power to full 100%. The strain nearly killed me. As it is, I'm left with the reminders. But, to us in the VOD, our scars are also a way to show who we are. What a noble sentiment. But still, are you able to use such high power now? No, not even close. I haven't tested myself recently, but I know my stable output should be around 10%, maybe 15%. I've managed to spike up to 20 in moments of great need, but it always leaves me strained afterwards. Recovery girl always diagnoses me with a new type of stupid every time I do it. Can't forget Kix. He's been on your case lately, VOD. Izuku grunted as he recalled RG's newest protege. At least Quick Fix and Ratchet aren't after me. They will be if you don't start taking things slower, or Evio. Oh, be quiet. 3126. Just worried for ya, that's all. 3126 said, most likely ironically rolling his eyes beneath his helmet, but there was genuine worry in his voice. Caring and being worried about one's siblings is always a noble cause, Melissa said with a smile, having already taken a liking to how different each of the boys in front of her were, despite mostly sharing the same face. Huh. Noble. I like it, 3126 mumbled beneath his breath. Anyway, I might have something that could help you out. I'll show you later. For now, let's go see Papa. He doesn't even know you're here. Ah, I see you planned quite the surprise then, eh? Yep. Let's go. The group smiled at each other, and after discussing things, it was decided that Izuku and Toshinori would follow Melissa, while the others would explore the island. Izuku wanted to take Eri along with them, but he also knew that having time without him would help her out in the long run. Besides, with the already established security, nothing could go too bad, could it? Oh no, I've invoked Murphy's Law. At a terminal overlooking the expo. We've infiltrated the expo. When will the goods get here? At 3 p.m., you'll find them at Gate 66. Then we'll be waiting. Dr. David Shield was a constantly busy man. If he wasn't inventing the next big thing in support tech, then he was constantly doing research, overseeing projects, and generally running Island. Well, mostly running it. He did have the board to answer to. Still, he would always do his best to prioritize his family, especially when it was his only daughter, Melissa. Melissa, knowing this, prepared this surprise to give him a break and relax with an old friend. It's good to see you again, Toshi, Dave said as he fist-bumped Toshi. On that note, it's time that I introduce you to someone, Izuku. Toshinori turned to face his son, who was almost trembling in excitement. It is such an honor to meet you, Izuku said as he rapidly began to shake the older man's hand. I've followed your work throughout the years. Ever since you designed Beer's young-age suit, you've been known as the pinnacle in support tech. Even more so after you won a Nobel Quirk Medal. Dave slightly blushed and rubbed the back of his head. Beer? I'm flattered, and I'm glad to know that my work's been appreciated by the younger generation, too. Toshinori coughed slightly, and both Dave and Izuku gave him a side look. Look, it's been a long time for us. How about you let us old folks catch up while you two see what the expo has to offer, Melissa? Sure thing, Papa. Izuku, let the others know I'll be with them soon, all right? Sure thing, Beer. Izuku nodded before letting himself be led out by Melissa. So, do you prefer Izuku or Mandalore? They heard Melissa ask as they went down the hallway. David sent away his assistant Sam as well, and soon enough they were left alone. You should power down now. I can't imagine that being like that for so long is pleasant for you, Toshi, David said as he prepared to get to work. That's something that we need to talk about, Dave, Toshi said as he slowly began to shrink. Dave blinked as he could have sworn that Toshinori should be smaller. Toshi? He asked in confusion. Wait, this place is amazing, Izuku said as he got the tour from Melissa. She was quick to explain the various amenities and benefits of Island, along with a few downsides for scientists in the name of operational security. Izuku's grin was wide as he also took in the vast amount of heroes from all over the world, including the famous Godzilla. This is awesome on so many levels. A lot of heroes are going to be there at the party tonight, although I guess you knew that already since you came with Uncle Might. Beer told me about it, Izuku commented as he kept looking around. Yeah, I had to get some formal clothes last minute, but fortunately I was able to find some. Beer? Oh, that's that Mandoe thing, right? That new language that Principal Nizu of UA has sponsored? Oh, right. I forgot about that, and yeah, Beer means parent. So, was I right about the secret family thing? 'Cause there's also the super strength and well? Izuku chuckled at her questions. You remind me of another friend of mine. He asked me if I was All Might's secret love child. To answer your question, no, but He's grown to be the father I never had. That's sweet. Oh, let me show you what's inside here. They spent the next hour going through the exhibits with Melissa excitedly explaining each one and how they were created from her father's works. It's wonderful to see you so inspired by your father's work. Well, I plan on becoming a scientist as great as him one day. Ah, then that must mean that you're studying here at the Island Academy. You must be quite the genius then. I wouldn't go that far. I still have a lot to learn. I've got a long ways to go before I can match my papa's footsteps. Izuku gave a quick huff at that. I feel the same. He whispered as a comfortable silence remained between them. I saw your conference, you know. I like to keep track of what All Might does, and seeing how much attention he'd been giving you, plus what you said, do you really think he's going to retire soon? She asked, unsure of what to expect. Izuku remained silent for a moment as he recalled the moments of weakness, the blood, the gauntness, one for all, but also the healing, the returning cells, and according to Beer, a new outlook on life. It will come, perhaps sooner than any of us are ready, but we still have some time. At least, I hope we do. Melissa doesn't know. Beer told me that he planned on telling her once his body was healed a little more. My words may be slightly hollow, but hopefully we do have a bit more time. The somber mood wasn't one that he enjoyed, so he changed the subject. So, what else do you like to do around here? A spike of fear jolted through his spine. You look like you're having fun, Izuku. Swiftly turning, he was met by a blank-faced Ochako who was smiling oddly at him. Ochako, you're here. You look like you're having fun, Izuku, she repeated. Ochako? He asked, suddenly feeling an odd dread. Nana's giggling in the back of his mind didn't help either. Ehem. Turning around, he saw Momo and Kyuka standing with their arms crossed, making him start sweating nervously, as the expressions the two girls had on their faces told him they heard pretty much everything, with Kyuka even holding up her earlobes like she was getting ready for a tiny boxing fight. I heard everything, the punk rock girl said in a flat tone. Oh hey, Momo. Kyuko, it's good to see the three of you. Melissa, let me introduce you to some of my closest friends, he said with a sheepish laugh. Somehow, those words managed to appease them, for whatever reason they needed to be appeased. This is Jiro Kyuka, also known as Beslar. Yaoyorozu Momo, a.k.a. Kriati, and Uraraka Ochako. My best friend, Uravity, he said with a soft smile as he looked at her with a soft smile and a look in his eyes that made hers widen and she began to flush. Melissa raised a brow at them before turning towards the other two girls who slightly nodded with smirks. Cough. Anyway, girls, this is Melissa Shield, a new friend from a common person we know, although I can't reveal much else. Not my secret to tell, Izuku said, hoping that his words would clue Melissa in. Yeah, my uncle has a high opinion of Izuku and thought it'd be nice for us to meet. It's great to meet all of you. The girls greeted Melissa, and soon enough she led them off toward a cafe where they could talk and relax for a bit. I hope the others are all right. I haven't seen them all day. His question was soon answered, as the moment they arrived at the cafe, he spotted a familiar tuft of electric yellow hair currently walking around with a tray with refreshments for the customers. So this is the job he was talking about, he thought, as the quintet found an empty table and sat down. Kaminari, he called out. The blonde quickly perked up and smiled as soon as he saw them before heading over to meet them. Hey guys, glad to finally find you. What can I get you? He took their orders, and before he left he leaned in and whispered something else. Hey, look, sorry again about the sports festival thing. Thought I'd make it up to you by warning you that my net is here too. Izuku and the girls cringed in unison, and he gave out a tired sigh. Yeah, he's on his break right now, but if you want I can give your guys orders to go so that you don't have to deal with any new theories. Izuku shook his head as he recalled Mineta loudly yelling out his theories on a daily basis back at UA. The most aggravating was him being some kind of harem lord, and using his clones to seduce the women around him before taking their place. It had made him sick to even think about it, and fortunately, only a select few actually gave heed to Mineta's perversions. Mostly those that were part of Midnight's fan club and were jealous of all the attention that Bly was getting. To even think about betraying his brothers like that, such as Thorn? It was inconceivable, Worse than any action the Iruitai had done. Besides, I have my own issue. He thought to himself as he shyly looked at his closest friend before softly puffing his nose and shaking his head. Don't get distracted now. Thank you, Kaminari. I think we'll take you up on that offer.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Jammingway. You're not so bad after all. Kyoka muttered as Kaminari began to chuckle. Hey, I know my limits, he said with a smirk before leaving to get their orders. So, this Mineta? Don't ask, they all said in unison. It was when they got up to leave. Tinya had actually popped by and greeted them, saying that he was there as a representative of the Ida family, that they heard a large explosion from another section of the island. Quickly making their way over, they were sidetracked by Izuku finding his mother and the others and quickly greeting Eri before picking her up. Heading over to what Melissa called the villain attack course, they found multiple rocky pillars with robots being destroyed by prospective heroes. At the top of the pillar was Kirishima. Kirishima? Is that one of your friends? He's more Mina's friend, but he's grown to be a good classmate, Izuku answered Melissa before looking down and narrowing his eyes in annoyance. And of course he had to be here, too. Izuku let out a sigh as he saw Bakugo get ready for the course before blasting off and quickly taking them out. Die. He still hasn't changed a bit. Wow, a new record. 15 seconds. First place. Walking proudly at getting first place, he was then shocked by Kirishima's call-out. Hey, isn't that Midoriya? Growling, Bakugo quickly blasted forward and gripped the railings, already screaming. What the hell are you doing, URK? He was shut up by a punch to the jaw that snapped it shut before a side fist hit his chest and knocked him off the railing. Eri, are you all right? Izuku asked as he set her down and held her tightly. He could feel her shakily nod, but it did nothing to appease him, only filling him with fury. Beer, watch over Eri for a bit. I'll be right back. All right, Sairai Ka? Okay. Izuku then grabbed the railing and hopped over. Katsuki growled as he hit the ground harshly, a sharp sting already blooming in his jaw.
That son of a dash.
Kugh. He gasped as he felt something impact his chest. Listen here, Iruitai, Deku growled with his foot on his chest. Bakugo snarled before the foot moved, and his vision was suddenly tilted to the side as the foot was now firmly planted on his face. DKU.
Shut up.
Deku barked. I'm going to make this as clear as possible. I don't care why you're here, how you're here, what you think of me, or what you say. But if you ever scare Eri like that again, because of your inability to communicate like a normal human being, I will tear out your voice box. Are we clear? Lightning surged out Deku's furious eyes as he glared back, trying to convey as much hatred as possible. You, he growled. I said, are we clear? Deku repeated, increasing the pressure, making it nigh unbearable.
TCH, fine.
He forced out and the pressure immediately went away, Deku not even bothering to say anything else before leaping back up. Katsuki coughed out the dust that had flown into his mouth and snarled as his hand crackled with explosions. Cursing out the other boy, he soon made his way back up to the stands where he saw Deku and his little entourage leave the arena, not even bothering to go for the course. Katsuki, he heard from the side and his heart slightly stopped. He recognized that voice, though admittedly, he hadn't heard it in years. He desperately shoved some unwanted feelings down as he forced himself to stare at a woman who used to look at him with such fondness. Now, only sadness and disappointment were in her gaze. Auntie Inko, he said, more out of habit than anything. Katsuki was not so blind that he couldn't admit that he'd lost the right to use that title a long time ago. Inko in turn closed her eyes in pain, not physical, but emotional. It's good, she began, opening and closing her mouth multiple times as she tried to find the words to say. It's nice. She then sighed sadly as she turned away from him. Take care of yourself, Katsuki. Say hi to your parents for me. Walking away from him, Katsuki swallowed deeply as he felt something hard settle in his gut and something sharp at the corner of his eyes. As she walked away, his mouth tasted like ash. Are you sure you don't want to try out the course? Melissa asked Izuku, who was walking away from it. And give him more reason to scream? Che, I'd rather not. I just want to spend the day with all of you, Izuku said. Eri now sitting on his shoulders, much calmer but still dealing with the adrenaline. Melissa grimaced before leaning towards Ochako and the others. Who was that? That was Bakugo. He's another student in our class. Izuku and him have some really bad blood between them, Ochako explained as they trailed slightly behind Izuku. What was it he called him? Deko, which means useless. It's a horrid insult. Please do not ever mention the word in his presence. It infuriates him like nothing else, Momo said with a grimace as Kyoka nodded. Got that right. I got the details from Rex, but during his license exam, a student really hurt one of the VODE and called him that. Apparently they knew each other from middle school. That student had to get carted away by medical personnel. Truth be told, he barely tolerates Bakugo's presence at school and barely pays him any attention, but he's super protective of Eri. Is that his sister? They don't look much alike. HM? Oh no, that's his daughter. What? Melissa whisper yelled as the three began to giggle. Izuku saved her from a villain group and she didn't have a home, so he basically took her in. It took him so long to admit it though. Ochako giggled as the other three then began to recall some of the cute moments between them. Izuku, unknown to them, was able to hear every single word and was currently glad that he'd put his helmet on. Eri liked to play with the ridges, as it currently served well to hide his blush. Zuku. He slightly looked up and saw Eri looking at him with concern on her face. What's up, Sairai Ka? Are you sure you don't want to go? Go where? On that? She said, pointing back at the course still currently flashing Bakugo's image and record on a screen. Izuku paused and grabbed her before setting her down in front of him and kneeling. If I did that, he would just get meaner and louder, something no one here deserves to hear, especially you. At that, Eri seemed to think about what he said, before nodding. But you'll be there, right? Izuku blinked but nodded. Yes, I'll always be there for you. Then it's fine, I've heard worse. Izuku's heart fell upon hearing those words, but nodded once more. Are you sure? Eri nodded and added one last thing. I want to see the green light again. It feels warm, she said as she started to hug his leg, a bit like a baby koala with its mom. Turning around, he saw the girls all looking at him with teary expressions cooing over the two. Yep, he was extremely glad that he had the helmet on. The group eventually made their way back in time to see the remnants of a glacier break away as it melted down. Oh look, Todoroki's here. Izuku, you're back. I thought you weren't going to participate, Tenya said as he walked up and patted his friend on the shoulder and gave a little wave to Eri who waved back. I wasn't, but Eri wanted to see me take a shot at it, so here I am. Tenya smiled, just the slightest hint of smugness peeking through. Oh, don't give me that look too. I am sorry, my friend, but you must admit, you two make a very adorable sight. Izuku somehow managed to convey a deadpan expression through the motionless visor covering his face. Don't think that I can't ask Tensei for baby pictures, Tenya? Or should I say Tenchan? Izuku said in the smallest sneer one could possibly muster, to show that he was deadly serious, but didn't want to come off as a threat, like how friends usually jabbed at each other. Now that he thought about it, though, it was kind of pointless under the helmet. Tenya gasped in horror. How do you know that nickname? Oh, you know, Tensei's always coming by for his treatments, and I just had to see how he was doing. He was so grateful that we just ended up talking and the topic landed on you. So like I said, I could easily call in a favor. You wouldn't. Oh, but I would. Mercy. Tenya begged, but Izuku only cackled as he began to walk down toward the arena after leaving Eri with him, the girl rubbing his leg in an attempt to comfort him as a depressive aura emanated from him. Izuku took a deep breath as the announcer girl called out his approach. And now we have a new contestant. We have a special treat today, as we get to see Japan's newest sensation, Mandalore. Japan's newest sensation? That's a bit of a stretch, no? He thought with a sweat drop, only to be met with awkward silence and sheepish brothers inside of her head, while Nana just sighed. Really, Izuku? Right, I get your point, be a beer. He groaned in defeat and resignation, before cracking his neck and preparing himself for the course as he drew his blasters. Oya! he exclaimed, just as the timer started. One for All immediately sprang to life, enveloping his body like a hurricane as he flashed from spot to spot, spinning and shooting, and even kicking and punching the villains. He was practically lightning incarnate, and a torrent of blue bolts flew in seemingly all directions, yet each of them hit their mark perfectly. Shortly after, the timer called to a stop, with Izuku looking up to see his score. It was a whole 3 seconds faster than Bakuga's. Most people looked somewhat dumbfounded at what had just happened, until the sound of a single person clapping started to emanate from the crowd, which soon turned into roaring applause. Izuku took off his helmet and smiled before raising his fist, much to the crowd's approval. Heading back up, he was quick to hug Eri, who had wrapped herself around his leg. Eri looked at him with such adoration in her eyes that it made him slightly choke up. "You were great." "Thank you, Eri." With another hug, he picked her up and they headed back towards the main group to where Kirishima was talking with the others. "Oh hey, Midoriya. That was super manly, dude. You blitzed through that course like it was nothing, even beat out Todoroki and Bakubro." Izuku blinked. "Bakubro? Look, sorry about what happened earlier. I forgot that it's pretty much on site between you two." "It's nothing to be worried about, Kirishima. How are you guys here, though? The previews tickets are a lot more expensive than the General Eye Island ones." "Oh, Bakubro got 2 tickets for winning the sports festival, and he brought me along." Izuku closed his eyes in slight annoyance. Of course, the sports festival. Sometimes it really felt that there was a cosmic being that was guiding things along, and made it so that Bakugo won the sports festival as an excuse for him to be here and annoy him. Bah, now he was getting off topic, putting aside the existential crisis. "But again, I'm really sorry about him. I didn't expect him to dash." "Kirishima, let me stop you there," Izuku interrupted as he raised his hand. "Look, I honestly do not care about Bakugo being here. I was just pissed because he can only speak in Howler Monkey and Scared Eri. If you want to try and become his friend, that's your choice. It doesn't change anything between us. Now that I think about it, where did he go? I thought for sure he'd be screaming again that I beat him. Oh well, no matter. Anyway, I'm glad that you got this chance to be here. Enjoy yourself, see the sights, and I'll see you later at the party tonight," he said, patting the other boy on the shoulder, trying to not sound too dismissive as he began walking away shortly after, with Eri and the rest of his friends following suit. A few minutes of quiet walking later, he felt someone tug on his hand and looked down to see Eri's ruby-red eyes look into his own. "Something wrong, Eri?" he asked as he kneeled down to be at eye height with her, while the horned girl just shuffled her feet somewhat sheepishly.
I'm hungry.
She muttered, a bit embarrassed due to the fact that it hadn't been that long since her last snack. Izuku only chuckled as he gently ruffled her hair, something she seemed to enjoy, before picking her up. "How about we find a snack stall then, Sairaike?" he said with a smile as the little girl nodded gently while he began walking once more, both of them now looking for something to eat. Shortly after, the two would be walking inside of the expo again, Izuku with a can of matcha flavored boba tea and Eri munching on a bun with red bean filling. While walking around, however, the two once more ran into Melissa, who decided to join the two on their walk, as she was curious to learn more about the both of them and their friends. "I still can't believe how complex this armor is. It's made out of a material that I've never seen before that makes it extremely durable, yet it's also lighter compared to other types of body armor used by heroes and other countries' militaries," the blonde girl said in awe, as she inspected every inch of the vambrace she was currently holding in her hands, after asking Izuku if he could take it off so she could get a better look at it. Well, the fact that the entire armor itself consists of about 20 individual plates still makes it kind of heavy at times, though, Izuku said sheepishly, as he had on several occasions seen many of his brothers walking around wearing only parts of the armor back at campus. "Interesting. I see that you carry a set of weapons too, if the holsters are anything to go by." "Yeah, I have a rifle and a pistol as a sidearm, although lately I've been meaning to have a sword added to my gear. My only problem is that every blade I use shatters under the force I use." Melissa paused as she recalled something from the back of her mind. "Come with me. I want to show you something." Izuku was quickly dragged off, Eri coming along with them, and he quickly waved a goodbye to the others, but promised to be back soon. Ochako's eye twitched slightly, something that was noticed by Momo. Are you all right, Ochako? The heiress asked her friend, worry in her tone. Just fine, the brunette said through clenched teeth while having her eyes shut, doing her best to maintain her smile. It took a bit, but they eventually made their way to Melissa's personal laboratory. Wow, you've certainly created a lot, haven't you? Well, it is my passion. She then moved to a desk where a few boxes were. You know, I wanted to be a hero when I was younger, but after I was diagnosed quirkless, I switched to support tech. I thought that if I could at least help the heroes with my tech, I could save lives indirectly. Izuku blinked in surprise. Quirkless people were getting rarer and rarer nowadays. To find two within the last few months within his age range, and not from the older generations. It was humbling to say the least, because were it not for his brethren, he'd be the same. For what it's worth, I believe that you could be a fine hero regardless. Quirks don't make heroes, people do. Melissa smiled sadly at him, before shaking her head in melancholy. To be a hero, you need a quirk, and a good one of that. A quirkless hero would never be accepted by hero society, let alone the commission. And what would I even be able to do if I actually got my license? Pretty sure distraction is the first thing many would think of. Izuku, unfortunately, had no response to that. If anything, it now left him worried for Isabi. Was she all right? Was she still pursuing her dream? And if so, was she being blocked by it? It was a good thing he had a particularly furry friend who could help. Well, it's a good thing that Nizu loves to stick it to the commission. Melissa blinked. You know Principal Nizu? We've had a few training events together, and he sponsored me so that I could get my provisional license ahead of schedule. You've reminded me of another quirkless girl who also wants to be a hero, and if what you said is true, then I'll have to help her reach her dream. Melissa was taken aback at how brazen the younger boy was about defying the commission. If you ever decide to go the hero route, I'm sure he'd help you too, he said, while also thinking back to what she said about what role she could fill if she managed to get a license. Ever considered using any of the support gear that you make? He asked, to which she blinked a couple of times. I have every now and then. Problem is that they're primarily made to strengthen or help control a quirk, not the person. I don't think I've ever heard of a quirkless hero in history either, she said, sounding more and more deflated with each passing second. Thinking about what he could do to try and lift her spirit and keep her hope alive, Izuku racked his brain for what he could say, until something, or rather someone came to mind. Django didn't have a quirk either, and he managed to get into the hero course, Izuku said, making her head perk up. Who? Melissa asked as she turned her head towards the greenet, who currently looked like he was having a slightly difficult time keeping his composure, if the restlessness of his hands and feet were anything to go by. Taking a deep breath, the freckled teen cleared his throat before speaking up. Django, he was my brother. He was the first of the VOD to come out, but even being part of a quirk, he didn't have access to the strength, the speed, anything. All my brothers practically fight quirkless. Izuku trailed off a bit as he centered himself, feeling Nana's comfort and even hikages with the VOD. At the USJ, when we fought that villain, no, that monster, I got taken out of the fight. Just one blow and I was down. He jumped in, distracted it, drove it away. But he didn't make it.
I'm sorry.
But that doesn't change the fact that he was a hero. He was my hero. He didn't have any powers, only the gear he was given. In their words, they're just clones. But like how a quirk doesn't make a hero, so too does the fact that they're clones doesn't make them anything less. He bowed his head as he softly smiled. The pain was still there. No great realization or act would fully remove it. But it was more manageable, the memories bittersweet.
Oh, Ihan.
If he were here today, I'm sure he'd say the same thing. Her eyes widened as he fully faced her and extended his hand. Melissa, you can become a hero? Melissa ducked her head and turned away, leaning heavily against her desk, her shoulders trembling as she tried to keep her cries to herself. Izuku gently left her alone, knowing that this was something that she needed. Thank you. You were right. I needed to hear that, he heard her say as he continued to give her space. She then straightened up and rubbed her face, tidying up her hair, and basically making herself presentable again. Looking at how the girl in front of him had her hope rekindled, made Izuku smile softly as he closed his eyes for a moment, thinking back to the time his first brother had helped him through all of his hardships. Even if he wasn't amongst the living anymore, his words still helped people when they needed it the most. Melissa then opened a box revealing 2 red bracelets. I'm not sure how well these will work with your armor, but I created these to withstand Uncle Mite's punches 3 times. I call them full gauntlets. Passing them to him, Izuku admired the craftsmanship before taking off his armor. The black bodysuit would have to stay on, but hopefully it wouldn't be too tight. Melissa quickly explained how to expand it, and his eyes widened, as in a flash of color his forearm was now covered. It's nice, but... Melissa mumbles as she then began to fiddle with something and grabbed his vambraces from the side. In another flash of light, the armor was now slightly meshed together. I think it a shame to have the armor separated. It certainly does keep the look together, Melissa said with a grin, and Izuku smiled back. A slight glint from the side, and his attention was caught by something else. Oh, what's that? He said as he walked over to another desk where it seemed that she was working on another project. Oh, that? It's nothing really. Truth be told, I've been watching you for a while now, and I saw your swordsmanship skills against Stain. I thought about creating a sword, but I also wanted to challenge myself, she sighed, looking down on the ground in frustration. Challenge yourself? You mean as in the hilt, the design, or the blade? He asked, to which she nodded, as he picked up the project and looked at it. The hilt was made out of a silver-colored alloy and looked like that of a katana used back in feudal Japan several centuries ago. And just like the ancient swords, it was a beautiful work of art. Pretty much. However, if what you're telling me is true, then I don't know if any type of blade made of any so far known solid alloys or materials would be able to handle your quirk. No blade of any solid material. Hold up. That's it, Izuku exclaimed, hitting his own palm with his clenched fist and startled Eri and Melissa in the process. What about something energy-based? Well, yeah, I've considered that too. My problem is that, well, look here, she said as she pointed at the hilt he was looking at. The material that I used for this hilt is designed to not break because it constantly absorbs energy, particularly electrical in nature. It's sort of self-repairing in that sense. I couldn't use it for the full blade because it doesn't conduct that energy very well, and would get brittle and snap even with the energy output spread throughout. Inside would be an energy source that could transmit a blade through a focus and out of the hilt. However, the foci that I've been using aren't up to snuff. I had a shipment of special crystals that we got from the Arctic, but they were lost at sea. Is there anything else you can use? Well, Melissa said as she motioned towards the pile of broken crystals, I've tried to use a multitude of foci, but every single one has been unable to handle the strain. She sighed in frustration and shook her head. Maybe I should just give up on this. Izuku hummed as he idly fingered the crystal under his shirt. For some reason. Hey, he called out, catching her attention. Try it with this. He held out the black crystal, even now still appearing to absorb light around it. Are you sure? She asked. I can't guarantee that it'll survive. Trust me. All right. She quickly popped open the hilt and began to do some work, carefully removing the crystal from the necklace it was attached to and inserting it into the hilt. Let's hope this works. Would you like to do the honors? She said, as she closed the chamber, before handing the invention towards the hero in training. Sure, Izuku said as he grabbed the hilt and pointed it towards the ceiling. Whir. The sword seemed to sing a haunting melody as it ignited for the first time, all of them gasping at its ethereal beauty. It was black, but seemed to emanate a white energy that crackled around its edge and gave off an aura that spoke of authority and commanded respect, yet at the same time of protection and duty. Whosoever would stand before this blade would know fear, and whosoever would stand behind it would feel protected. It's kinda heavy, but it feels right, Izuku muttered, as he slowly and gently moved it through the air in what normally would be a horizontal slash. I can't believe it's actually working. Yes, Melissa shouted in excitement, catching the other two off guard. Sorry. She sheepishly rubbed the back of her head. It's so pretty, Ares said as she was enchanted by the blade. I guess that's another thing to thank you for, Django? Izuku whispered before turning it off. Take it with you? It was meant for you anyway, Melissa said, and Izuku nodded his thanks. You've certainly helped me out a lot, Melissa. Are you sure you don't want to talk to Nisa now? You're certainly becoming my hero already, he said, giving her a bright smile, which was accompanied by Aries' eager nodding. Melissa flushed but was pleased. A call is here. A call is here. Whoops. Izuku muttered as he grabbed his phone and saw that it was Beer. Beer? Izuku, where are you? We needed to get ready for the party, and I still need to do Aries' hair. Toshi's already waiting for us. We'll be right there, he said as he hung up and grabbed Aries. Thank you for everything. I'll see you at the party. Right. See you there. Izuku then sped off with Aries in his arms as they quickly made their way back to the hotel. Melissa watched them leave with a smile before she looked back to her lab. A hero, huh?
Gate 66.
Stepping out of the shipping bay, a man looked around at the clueless civilians walking around all over the place before his eyes settled at the giant tower in the distance, making him let out a chuckle as he made a call. We've got the goods. Wait, what? All Might in Mandalore? The villain growled as he looked over his crew grabbing the supplies they needed. Wait, a secret family? No way he has a secret family. That's just the media reaching for straws. He then paused as he considered something. Mandalore's family, huh? Well, at least we know how to keep the both of them in line. Dr. Shield's private lab. Toshinori's body had been showing wonderful results. The scar tissue was decreasing. Although most likely it wouldn't ever disappear completely, his organs were reappearing at a decent pace. It was projected that he would be able to eat fully by the time the next semester started, and he was even regaining some lost muscle mass. Overall, he wasn't a complete twig anymore. But while his physical body was one thing, there was another matter of great concern. I don't get it, Toshi, Dave said as he stared at the screen in horror. Even with your body healing, your quirk levels are still decaying rapidly. What's happening? Even after your fight with All for One, Toshinori sighed as he stared at his oldest friend. I guess, when you've been a hero as long as I have, it felt hollow to say that, and he knew he was being hypocritical, especially after telling Inko, although there'd been extenuating circumstances. I want to tell him, he deserves to know. But all he and Melissa have are each other, and I can't drag them into the fight. He thought his guilt started swelling up inside of him over having to lie to people he had practically considered family for years on end now. Would David even still consider him a friend if he told him? Of course he wouldn't. Friends were supposed to be able to trust their secrets with each other, and yet he still hadn't told him about One for All in all of the years they had known each other. If he told him now, David would probably feel like Toshinori didn't consider him trustworthy. Then I guess this is it. The symbol of peace really is dying. It's only because of you that Japan's crime rate stays at 6%. Other countries have about 20%, a few even worse. Without you, who will keep the peace? Toshinori sighed as he got off the bed and walked over to place his hand on his oldest friend's shoulder. Dave, there's no need to be so pessimistic, my friend. There are still plenty of heroes out there who will fight the good fight. Besides, I have hope for a better future, thanks to my son, Mandalore. Your son? What? Not by blood, but in spirit and every other way that matters, Toshinori said as he put on his clothes. Come, there's a video I want to show you. Quite a few, actually. Dave let himself be taken out of the private lab and led away. Regret filled his heart as he hoped his friend would forgive him for what he'd done. The moment they stepped outside of the lab, however, David saw something peculiar to say the least. I don't remember hiring any security besides the robots, he said, as he saw a few soldiers walking around in white armor, carrying around what could only be some kind of strange guns. I was wondering when they'd get here. Over here, boys. The group of soldiers perked up and waved back before heading over. Good to see you again, All Might. Glad to see you're doing all right. Dave choked. Hey, no? Oh, right. I haven't had a chance to explain yet. Dave, these are some of the VOD. They're clones that come from Izuku's quirk. He already knows my secret. Naturally, they know as well. They made their way to an office where Dave got to know the different clones. Truth be told, he was quite surprised at how unique they were. Come, I want to show you some of my boy's exploits. Sitting down, Dave turned on the TV and passed the remote to Toshinori so that he could search for a video. Oh, hey, All Might, show him the new video that came out. What new video? You haven't seen it yet? Look up Who is Mandalore? It's by that popular hero commenter. Izuku's gotten a video from him? I'm quite amazed. He usually only does that for top 100 heroes or others that catch his eye. The VOD just chuckled, glad to see their brother getting the attention he deserved. Let's start then. The video's thumbnail was a mash of images of Izuku at different times of his young career with a focus of his helmet. Clicking on it, the commenter's intro played before moving on to the actual video. Welcome, one and all, to today's video. I don't think I've seen so many requests to do a particular hero since All Might's 30th anniversary video, but here it is. He's been making waves ever since the USJ and has shocked millions with his words and actions. Allow me to introduce you to the rising symbol of hope, Mandalore. Rising symbol of hope? Dave thought as he let the video continue. As they watched the video, Toshinori couldn't help but think of the future. My time is running out, maybe not as much as before, but one day the symbol of peace will fall, and in his place, a symbol of hope alongside a foundation. He thought as he recalled Izuku and his friends. Toshinori softly smiled. The future was in good hands. Dave, meanwhile, was astonished, and as he continued to watch with Toshinori commenting about everything, a part of him began to feel hope. Sneakily opening his phone, he sent a quick message. D. Cancel it. Send the actors their payment, but tell them we don't need them anymore. S. What? Why? D. Because if what All Might saying is true, then the future is in safe hands. Please, Sam, cancel it. S. Sigh, very well. S. There. I sent them the message and the payment. D. Thank you, Sam. S. I hope you're sure about this. Meeting up with Toshinori after the call to remind him of the party, Izuku, Inko, and Eri arrived to discuss what they would do after the speech, with David also being present to greet Izuku and tell him to just have fun afterwards. We'll see you guys at the party, all right? Sure thing. Have fun with your stepdad. KRK. Surprisingly enough, the choke wasn't Izuku's but Inko's. He gave an odd glance at her, feeling that she was hiding something. She smiled sheepishly at him before sweeping Eri up and moving along. That was weird. Nana face-bombed inside the mindscape, followed by the sound of countless of the VOD, still inside doing the same along with exasperated sighing. What? What did I say? Why do you all sound so disappointed? He asked, wondering what prompted them to do that. You'll understand soon enough, Nana said in an exasperated tone while Izuku just shrugged and began heading towards his room so that he could change into a more formal state of dress for the party, rather than his armor. Soon they'd be meeting up with Toshinori, who was actually still in his hero suit, but he'd quickly leave to take care of some quick business. On his way there, he ran into Tenya, Denki, Ochako, and Momo, who decided to follow him and catch up with each other's experiences during the past few hours. Soon enough they split up again, since they had their reservations at a different hotel so that they could change over to their more fancy clothes. Surprisingly enough, Toshinori had come over again. Apparently, a lot of his old buddies from America and many other heroes that he'd worked with wanted to see Mandalore. I'd like for you all to join me to meet them. Izuku had changed into a nice, simple black suit with a vest. It was a simple design but comfortable, and he'd even managed to get one of those nice shirts with cufflink holes. He proudly donned UA cufflinks. They were a gift from Nizu from a while back. The only thing was that he struggled with the stupid tie, so he finally decided to just get rid of it and take off the top button. It made him look like a perfect gentleman, though there was one very noticeable thing that stood out: the vambrace adorning his right arm. The moment Toshinori saw him, the older man froze for a bit before grinning and saying that he looked nice. Why did Beer look terrified for a moment? He thought, before shrugging it off and returning the smile as he walked up on them. Are you sure you want us to head in with you? It might cause more problems with the media. Unknown to Izuku, however, a few people in the crowd were eyeing him with interest, a smile spreading across their lips as they eagerly awaited for the right moment, which went unnoticed by the masses. Well, my boy, it most likely will, but many have requested to see you today. Toshinori sighed slightly as his gaze met Inko's. Besides, I want to be with you all. Inko flushed before smiling at him in gratitude. She was wearing the most beautiful emerald dress that complemented her hair and eyes, a gift from him when she'd been too nervous to come for fear of being underdressed. He smiled back before looking around and spotted a group of familiar faces before checking the time and smiled even wider than usual. You have a few minutes before the main event starts, so why don't you go and say hello to your friends first? Ah, they're still changing. They sent me a message that they'd be a little late. Besides, I'm enjoying my time with you as well. Izuku then kneeled and picked up Eri, the little one wearing a slightly puffy red dress with her hair done up in pigtails. Quite simply, she looked like an adorable little princess. Giving her a gentle hug and a small nuzzle on the cheek, he set her down on the ground once more as he finished preparing the last things, just as the event began. Cameras soon flashed and the media prepared to go live, as the freckled teen stepped up with All Might and faced the crowd. All Might had decided to escort Inko as well, so she'd been under a lot of scrutiny ever since they'd walked in. Toshinori, I thought you wanted to keep this a secret from the public? She whispered. I know, but to be honest, I'm tired of keeping secrets. It'll be tough, but I'm serious about this about you. What about AFO? If he truly is alive, then there's no doubt in my mind that he already knows, but either way, I will always be there to protect you. Hearing those words, Inko flushed slightly as she clutched his arm ever so tighter. It's great to see you here, Toshi. And you as well, Izuku? Or should I say Mandalore? Toshi's been telling me a lot about you. Hopefully only good things, Izuku said as he adjusted his head so that Eri could bury her face in his neck. The poor girl was still heavily shy. Truth be told, he was worried about having Eri publicly exposed like this, but All Might had explained that having them as a united front with her would be more than enough to make any villain second-guess trying to kidnap her. Plus, having a few of his brothers hidden here and there with blasters at the ready didn't exactly hurt either. He could, however, swear that he heard Thorn lamenting about something in his head, though. We're honored that everybody could be here for this historic moment. As you all know, the iExpo is globally regarded as the pinnacle in technology, both for saving lives and improving them. David's assistant Sam began after clicking a champagne glass with his spoon. Today is even more historic as we have with us Japan's very own symbol of peace, All Might, and if we're not mistaken, his protege, the rising symbol of hope. Mandalore, would the two of you like to give a few words? Both Izuku and Toshinori stiffened in shock, the latter giving an annoyed glare at his friend. You could have warned us, Dave. It's not like it wasn't going to happen as soon as they knew you were here. Although, I am a bit surprised that Sam asked for you to come up as well, Midoriya. Izuku shook his head in exasperation. Well, we might as well go up, right? Toshinori nodded, and Izuku was quick to pass Eri to his mother, who quickly led her away from the cameras. All Might went up first, with Izuku right next to him, and began his speech. Well, I'm not one for speeches, so let me just say that dash. An alarm rang out as an emergency sign appeared behind them. This is an announcement from the I-Island security system. We have received a report that an explosive device was discovered somewhere on the I-Expo grounds. Throughout the island, various robot drones began to file out and corral the people back to their residences, many of them rightfully confused and scared at the sudden turn of events. I-Island will now be in high alert mode. Your safety is our top priority. Residents and tourists should now return to their lodgings and remain inside. If that is not a possibility, please find the nearest security center. Many of Izuku's friends and classmates, unaware of the actual danger that would soon be known, followed the orders, but were still worried about their friends. Anyone remaining on the street after 10 minutes will be in violation of the law. Please stay out of public areas. As a precautionary measure, most of the main island buildings will now be sealed off. I repeat, we have received a report. At that moment, the doors to the party opened and armed men entered, aiming their weapons at the civilians, and began herding them towards the middle of the room, threatening to mow down every single person in the room if the pro-heroes tried to do anything. Clones in the room immediately began to react, taking out pistols and other weapons they were able to conceal, causing a heavy standoff to occur. What is the meaning of this? David shouted as the armed men finally managed to put all of the hostages into one place. The doors opened again and another man in a lab coat with dark red hair and a mask appeared. In case you haven't caught on, the security system is under our control. He then gestured to the screen. I know we've got a lot of heroes here, but if you decide to make a scene, the screen flashed to show the numerous civilians near the security robots. I'll make sure that the security sentries think that the good people they have in their sights are dangerous criminals, he said with a dark chuckle, as he started walking towards the pedestal where David, All Might, and Mandalore were. The latter was itching to run the villain through, but he couldn't. Not with so many people at risk, not with him at risk. So, let's play nice, because everyone on this island is my hostage. He then walked forward as Izuku made a slicing motion with his hand. What's the matter, boy? Is that supposed to be sign language? Cat got your tongue? The man said in a mocking tone just as he reached the teenager. He then reached up to his ear and spoke with somebody. Do it. All except for him. Holes opened up in the floor and blue bands of energized chains wrapped up each hero, including All Might. Buir. Crap. All Might said as he began to struggle.
Bang. No sudden moves.
If you take a step, I'll kill everyone in this room, the villain said, holding a smoking gun which he had fired, nearly grazing All Might as the bullet impacted in the wall on the other side of the room. The several mechanical hissing sounds could be heard amongst the crowd, as the clones turned off the safety on their blasters, allowing the gas in the cartridges to flow into their weapons. Villain. Herg. All Might grunted as he was kicked down. Good boy, now as for you, Mandalore, he said mockingly. Why don't you tell your little clones to stand down and put their hands in the air? We wouldn't want things to get messy, would we? Mandalore glared at him but forced out the words. Brothers, stand down but be ready. The clones jerked at the particular wording, but soon enough set down their weapons and kicked them over to the thugs who picked them up and seemed to inspect them, before deciding to discard their old, projectile-based guns in favor of the highly advanced blasters. Good, you have some sense in you, boy. Meanwhile, Toshinori and Dave were having a silent conversation, the latter assuring him that he would ensure everyone's safety. Somewhere else in the building, while the guests, All Might, David, Mandalore, and most of the VOD that had come with them were being held hostage in the main hall. Most of the students and the clones usually hanging out with them had avoided being captured. However, at the moment, they were currently clueless about what they should do. I have a bad feeling about this, Fordo said as he bit one of his fingers in frustration, being concerned for his brothers who were stationed the same place the party was held, before trying to communicate with them by using his wrist comm, only to be met with static. Damn it, I can't get through to Ori VOD, he said as he looked at the others. My phone has no signal, Shoto, who was currently wearing a white suit, said as he looked down at his mobile device that was currently being blocked out by the system. The elevators aren't functional either, Hyuka informed the others in a frustrated tone, before kicking the terminal. This, however, only hurt her foot, causing her to swear for the next couple of minutes while clutching it in pain, having forgotten that the shoes she currently wore weren't meant for anything outside of a gala, unlike her heavy boots that were with her hero costume. There's something wrong here. This level of security wouldn't be needed just to handle a single explosive device, Melissa said, with some of the clones from the permanent guard at UA nodded, having read everything in the manual about all sorts of crisis situations. Usually, all civilians would be asked to leave the premises, and then a squad of bomb defusers would be sent in to disarm the explosive. Miss Shield, would you know a way we could get to where the party is at? Something about this smells rotten, Fordo asked, to which the blonde girl nodded. We can get there if we use the emergency stairs. Then please lead the way, the second eldest of the VOD said, as the rest of the clones locked and loaded, while also handing out some spare blasters to the students, while Fordo handed one of his pistols to Melissa, who looked at him with shock. Know how to handle a gun? I would never kill anyone, she said in protest, a mix of fear and anger in her voice. Don't worry. We've been instructed to only ever use the stun setting on living beings, unless nothing else is optional, and even then we keep to the lower settings, he said, as he once more held the blaster towards her, seemingly being very insistent on her taking it, which she did after a couple of minutes, although reluctantly. Follow me, she said, as she led the group towards the emergency stairs. Izuku cursed under his breath over how helpless he and his brothers were to help all of the innocent people trapped with them, while all of the other pros in the room, especially All Might, felt just as angry at themselves for being unable to do anything other than just sit and look pretty. What no one expected, however, was Sam walking over to the villain and addressing him, the action causing everyone in the room's jaws to drop, especially David's. "Right this way, Wolfram," the elderly assistant said, as he started to lead the now-named villain towards a room. "What are you doing, Sam?" "Explain yourself," the scientist shouted, anger and hurt clear in his voice over the apparent betrayal of his friend. "I am simply doing what you were unable to do. Sell the device to the highest bidder. You are a fool for not seeing just how much money this thing could make us, David," Sam explained in a dead serious and disappointed tone. "With this, I can finally retire and disappear." "Device? What device?" Mandalore and All Might thought, just as they saw the butler start to walk away with the villain. "Don't do this. Do you really think he will just uphold his end of the deal once he obtains it?" "Don't be a fool," David shouted, causing the villain to turn towards him with an annoyed look on his face before his eyes widened. "You're David Shield, aren't you? Perfect. You will be of much use to me," he said as he grabbed the scientist by the collar and started to drag him away. "David!" All Might shouted and tried to move in his restraints before the terrorists pointed the blasters at him. "What did we say about moving, punk?" One of them snarled as he walked over to one of the clones and pointed the weapon directly at his helmet before pulling the trigger, the sound of the gas being ignited and turned into plasma echoing through the air, with the trooper collapsing to the floor less than a second later, a smoking hole left in the helmet. "VOD!" a clone cried out as he tried to cradle the body but was pushed back by another thug. "This is what we'll do from now on every time you move even an inch," he said as he started to laugh cruelly at the hostages' horrified expressions, taking pleasure in their fear, before noticing the death glare Mandalore was giving him, with the guard just laughing some more as he started to walk away, but not before kicking the lifeless corpse of the clone he had killed. "I'm going to kill him," Izuku thought to himself. "Izuku, I'm so sorry," All Might whispered, shame filling him as he let his head fall on the floor. Izuku couldn't reply, merely shaking his head. The freckled teen kept on glaring at the guard while gritting his teeth, as he looked at his fallen brother, who didn't even have a chance to defend himself, before scanning the rest of the room. With Wolfram gone, the only ones still here were the armed guards and another villain who was approaching him. "Well now, I certainly wouldn't want to miss out on this opportunity." "And who are you?" Izuku ground out, already getting a bad feeling about this.
Ah,
"Who am I?" "I'm Source Tormo, baby." Izuku's eyes widened. He'd heard about this particular villain. He was infamous for capturing heroes and forcing them to participate in brutal death matches against machines, beasts, and even other people. How he managed such a large operation without ever being caught and constantly on the move was one of the biggest mysteries of the analysis world of heroics. "Ah, it looks like you do recognize me. Well, let me get straight to the point. I'm bored. I've got orders from a man that all three of us should recognize," he said, motioning to All Might. "All for one. To not kill you, but it doesn't mean I can't have some fun." Izuku didn't have a moment to gasp before Tormo touched his chest, and he glowed before the world went dark. "Izuku." VOD. Source Tormo grinned as he extended his hand, and a miniature coliseum appeared in the middle of the room. Sure, after this his quirk would have been revealed to the world, but this was an opportunity that could not be refused. "Now, let's see what All Might's personal apprentice can handle, eh?" Toshinori stiffened and many others in the room gasped in shock. "Oh, that wasn't revealed yet, was it? No matter. Let's get on with the show." "But what's a show without music?" he said before turning towards a group of heroes that had been banded together. "I recognize you guys, the Who, Mongolia's top hero team/band. Here's the deal. You guys play some music and I don't cause some damage. How about it?" The leader of the group, and also Mongolia's #1 hero, Khan, grimaced and nodded, and they were released from their bonds and allowed to grab their instruments. They spoke a few words to each other in their native language before starting the music. Izuku woke up to the sound of cheering and drums, walking slowly forward before hearing something sounding like throat singing in a language he didn't understand, sending a shiver down his spine. This felt like a complete reversal of the sports festival, where his brothers had done the same, although in Mandoe. Finally, you're here. Izuku glared at the image of Source Tormo appearing as a giant holographic figure. We have a special challenger today, Japan's newest sensation. He's been catching everybody's eye, even the great All Might. It's the rising symbol of hope, Mayandi Elowar. Multiple figures in the crowd roared, although Izuku wasn't exactly sure how they were here. From what he could see, he was inside a miniature coliseum and could see the people outside. Let's see what he's got. Izuku took off his suit jacket and let it fall before quickly grabbing his newest sword and igniting it, along with drawing the blaster from the holster on his chest, which he had hidden beneath the garment. Ooh, baby's got a new toy. This is going to be so much fun. Slowly, the arena doors began to open and out came beasts and insects of unknown origin, far larger than anything he'd ever seen or even knew existed. You want a show? I'll give you a show. Back at the emergency stairs, the group of students and clones were making their way up the flights as fast as they could, before Kyuka stopped and made a hand signal for them to stop, while sticking her jacks into the ground and closing her eyes. A group of drones up ahead, numbering about 5 or 6, she said, with the rest of the group looking around for cover and preparing their blasters. The best outcome would be if we were able to take them all down at the same time, Fordo whispered as he looked at Denki, giving the electric blonde a nod and gesturing for him to come closer. Denki looked from behind the corner he was hiding and looked at Fordo and towards his classmates, each of them being ready, with the drones passing by just as Fordo gave them the signal, and they each fired a shot at the automatons. Before the robots could react, each of them were hit by the blue blaster bolts, the ionized plasma quickly frying and shutting down their internal systems. Coast is clear, let's get a move on. Making their way up to the veranda, they were all surprised to see villains having taken the party hostage. This is bad. All Might's down. He can't do anything. Hold up, where's Izuku? Ochako whispered as she tried to look around for her friend, her hazel brown eyes scanning each inch of the room, before letting out a horrified gasp and falling backwards, landing on her but with the others looking at her in worry. Ochako, what's wrong? Momo whispered, as the brunette slowly lifted her trembling arm to point at what she saw, with the Ravenette's eyes following the direction, and soon covered her mouth in shock as soon as she realized what the gravity-defying girl had seen. No, they've... She couldn't bring herself to finish the sentence. What they'd seen was the body of a clone, having been shot dead only moments before they arrived if the small trail of smoke was anything to go by. Act poor VOD, Fordo said as he shook his head. Right now, though, they needed to focus. They could mourn later. VOD Jairu, plug your jack into the wall. Let's see if we can communicate with All Might. All right. Once she did, Fordo grabbed All Might's attention with a flashlight and made some hand movements so that he could speak. All Might swallowed and responded. Villains have taken over the island's security system. It seems that your father was betrayed by one of his subordinates. They're heading up the tower for some kind of secret project that was locked away. Izuku's been captured by Torque Sormo. He's been miniaturized and is currently inside the arena in the center of the room, fighting for his life. Tashinori then looked up slightly and saw that Inko and Eri were safe, much to his relief. Inko and Eri are safe. You need to leave here and get help. I need to get outside of the tower for that, Fordo said, making most of them look incredulously at him. Look, I thought something like this could happen. So I asked Cody if Niza would be kind enough to station something around the island to help us. What do you mean that you thought something like this could happen? Ochako asked him. Easy, it's VOD, something always happens, he answered in the most deadpan tone anyone had ever heard him speak in, trying to protest against that claim for a moment, while coming up with several excuses in her head. Ochako decided to give up arguing with him, as she knew he was right. We should split up. That way we can cover more ground, Tinya said, to which most of the group nodded. It was interesting. In one universe they'd argue about leaving the safety of their unknown position or going ahead and rescuing the island regardless of the consequences. But here, whether it be their loyalty to their friends For their innate desire to do good, they were united in thought and action, knowing that they needed to do what was necessary. I'm staying here. I'll be your eyes and ears, Kyuka said, giving them a dead serious look. Then you'll need a calm, Fordo said as he took his off his wrist and passed it to her. I'll let you know if anything changes. Right. Fordo then got All Might's attention, and although the man was worried, he knew that there was no choice but to place their trust in the fledgling heroes. With one final salute, they sped off to save their friends. The group soon found themselves tired after heading up multiple flights of stairs, barely a third of the way up the 200 levels. Unfortunately, by the time they got to the 80th, the rest of the way up was blocked. Mineta, in his infinite wisdom, decided to pull a lever. Although it did open a path, Melissa warned them that whoever was at the security station would now be on to them, and as such, their time was now limited. I am going to shoot you when we're out of this, Mineta. Fordo roared as they began to run again.
I'm sorry.
#guys. What did you do? The main boss has found out that you guys are up there. They're sending more of those armed guards up your way. #. We got stuck and Mineta pulled a lever. We're on the 80th floor right now. #what? Never mind. They're planning on using the barriers to lock you guys in. Slam. 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 Yeah, we can see that. Todoroki. Tenya roared. Right. Ice surged forward and blocked the next set of barriers from fully closing while Tenya burst forward and kicked open a pair of doors that led to another room. It was enormous and completely filled with plants of all shapes and sizes, flora from around the world parted by waterfalls and artificial rivers. What is this place? A plant observatory. We study the effects of quirks on flora. Look, the elevator's coming up. Quick hide. They discussed the possibility of using the elevator, but with the security system overridden, it would have been a terrible idea to do so. They were forced to be patient, and soon enough, the two villains walked out of the doors. Ugh, look at this place. They could literally be anywhere. Hidden behind the bushes, they tensed up, hoping that they would pass by but willing to fight if necessary. Hey, we see you stupid kids. Fordo tensed and grabbed his pistols. What did you say, you stupid bastard? Come and get some. All three parties paused as they stared at each other. Whoops. What the dash? Bakugo, Kirishima, they're villains. Fordo opened fire and forced the two villains to dodge away as the others began to move. What the dash? What's going on? No time. Move. I'll hold them off. The rest of you, head on up. Todoroki was cut off as the comlink turned on. #guys. I need help. More security drones have been activated, and they've found me. I'm holding them off as long as I can, but I don't know for how much longer. Jairu. Copy that. Make your way up the stairs. We'll send somebody to support you. I'm on my way. I can head back down to help, Kaminari said, and Fordo nodded, passing him a pistol and a few grenades. Be careful, all right? Melissa already explained to us that your lightning's not going to do much. Just get her out of there and try to meet back up with us. Right, Kaminari said as he sprinted back to the entrance. The villains were already fighting Bakugo and Kirishima, and Todoroki would soon join the fray. Fordo, take the rest. I'll join you when I can, he said as he lifted them with an ice pillar. Be careful, VOD. Fordo yelled as they quickly rose up and made their way to a catwalk. Todoroki, what's going on? Kirishima asked. Villains have taken over the island. Todoroki replied as he unleashed another ice wall. What? That's it. I'm through with you kids. One of the villains roared as he burst through the ice. Stand fast. The fight's just beginning. All right. It looks like Mando's putting his money where his mouth is. Look at that skill, folks. The tenacity. He's really showing no mercy. Mandalore snarled as he leapt back from the swipe of what appeared to be some kind of mutated frog. The thing was absolutely enormous and had 3 eyes, and had already knocked him over once. Dodge. Following Hikage's warning, he moved to the left just as the beast's tongue shot out like a bullet, and with a quick swipe of his blade, he cut it off. The beast roared in agony, but he couldn't afford to show pity or mercy. It alongside everything else in this arena, was trying to kill him. He leaped forward and jumped in the air before falling on top of its head and using his saber to stab straight through its brain. You think that was hard? Just wait. I can't wait to punch the grin off of his face, Izuku muttered to himself before seeing more openings appeared. You get the hang of it quickly. Maybe you should come down and face me yourself, Mandalore challenged before dodging strikes from more creatures.
Imtu busikunting malasya munei.
Next up was what could only be described as a rhinoceros beetle. However, this one was a lot more aggressive than how the otherwise calm insects usually were. The hell did you do to this beetle, you bastard? The greenit shouted, just as the creature charged at him, barely managing to dodge out of the way of the rampaging critter's way. Oh, nothing much, just deprived it of food for some days and boom. It is now so hungry that it would eat anything smaller than itself, the villain said in a nonchalant tone, as if it was a completely normal practice. Dodging for a second time, Izuku didn't manage to get on his feet this time, as the rhinoceros beetle slammed into him, flinging him into the air and ran over him, causing the teenage boy to roll a couple of times as its legs kicked him a couple of times before he managed to get out, while the beetle kept going until it reaches the other side of the arena and skidded to a halt to charge again. Groaning in pain while getting himself off of the ground, Izuku felt disoriented as he saw his current foe coming at him at full speed, before raising his blaster pistol and firing, managing to hit it in a small opening in its exoskeleton, causing it to collapse and slide across the ground, skidding to a halt just before it reached him. And look at this, folks. Killing a poor insect in cold blood just because it was hungry. Is there no stop to this kid's cruelty? Source Tormo announced, causing the crowd to jeer and boo at Izuku. Oh, boo-hoo, you stinkin' sack of onions. Think you can guilt-trip me? Well, each and every one of you here are sleazebags. Starving animals? Forcing them to fight to the death? Abusing them? If anything, I performed a mercy kill. Not listening to him, the villain just kept on directing more of the animals towards him, with Izuku slicing through them and firing his blaster when he could, doing his best to keep himself alive. A few minutes of dodging, blasting, slicing, and dicing later, the blaster pistol ran out of ammunition, something that made him swear under his breath as he holstered it and grabbed onto the hilt with both hands. Come down and face me, you coward, he shouted at the man who had trapped him here, and just gave off a smirk to the hero in training. Very well then. You want a challenge? I'll give you a challenge. Running up the stairs, Kyuka briefly stopped to catch her breath, before firing a couple of shots at the security bots currently chasing her, managing to down one, with the other shot missing. The recoil on this thing is insane. How does Midoriya and his brothers hit nearly every time? She thought, before starting to run again, happy that she decided to wear only slightly higher than normal heels and a short dress rather than a long one. Activating her wrist comm, she called Fordo again, both wanting to know when her backup arrived and to give them more information about her current situation. Fordo, this is Jairu. Is there a place I should look out for my backup? She asked, waiting for the clone to reply. Hashtag, just keep your eyes on the road. Kaminari's on his way to help. Hashtag. Note, Chin-GH. Before she had managed to finish her sentence, one of the drones shot out a cable that wrapped around her mouth before reeling it back in, making the punk girl lose her balance and fall backwards. Hashtag Jairu? Kyoka? Hashtag. She screeched and cursed, even as she was dragged away, while more bots fired their cables to restrain her even further. She quickly planted her jacks in the ground and unleashed a blast that distorted the entire staircase in her panic, causing the bots to let go of her and all the stairs to crumble below her. She screamed as she fell before a hand quickly grabbed her arm. The pain was horrible on her shoulder, but she was glad to not have fallen. I've got you.
Din Kaminari.
Kaminari grunted as he pulled her up and over the stairs, gasping for breath. She slapped his shoulder as she sat down on what was left of the stairs. I'm not that heavy, Noodle Arms. Hey, you try blitzing down 50 flights of stairs and picking somebody up? His eyes widened as he quickly tackled her and forced them to dodge more restraints. No time. We've got to keep moving. Right. They were quick to keep moving, with Kyoka using a few moments to break down the stairs and inhibit their travel. I really hope destroying these doesn't bite us later. Got any better ideas? Nothing that would leave me standing. Then keep moving, she shouted, as they started to go up the stairs once again as fast as they could, before being stopped by more of the drones blocking their way. Out of the way, you damn clankers, Denki shouted as he activated his quirk and charged forwards, guns blazing and quirk short-circuiting as many of the mechanical guards in their way as he could. Groaning as he felt his mind numbing slightly as he used his quirk, the electric boy noticed a way to the side, leading to whatever floor they were on. Quickly grabbing Kyoka by the wrist, he started to run and pulled her with him, as the bots began to chase after them, gradually catching up as their mechanical nature meant that they didn't get tired. Damn it, I don't know what to do, Kaminari admitted as he gasped for breath, with the robots soon being right in their heels. Wait, look, the barriers. Kaminari looked and saw a panel that was conveniently blinking and showing the status of the security system. He gave it a quick shot, and the barrier closest to them immediately shut in emergency lockdown, blocking the robots from reaching them. Come on, Kaminari, Kyoka screamed as she was kicked to the ground, and Kaminari didn't have a moment to even speak before he was punted to a wall.
Kick.
You kids have been a real pain in my ass. I've been hunting you for quite a while now, a villain said, having snuck up on them from some side doors. He pointed his blaster right at Kyoka's head, making her squeak in fear and Kaminari gasp in horror. Now, why don't you tell me where the rest of your friends are? Let her go. The villain chuckled. Wrong answer. Crack. Kyoka shrieked in agony as he pressed his weight on her fully and cracked her ribs. Kyoka!
Des donkeys.
She sobbed as she reached out for him. I said quiet. The villain growled, before stomping down again, this time breaking a rib while still having the blaster fixed on the other teenager. Kyoka screeched. Denki could only stare as his heart began to race. He could feel every cell consumed by fear, by anger as he saw this villainous scum hurt his friend. His fingers sparked. Let her go, he whispered, unheard by the villain. You've got 5 seconds to tell me where your friends are before I put a hole in her pretty little head. 5. Crack. Another rib was broken, Kyoka crying out again. Lightning sparked between his fingers. 4. Crack. Yet another one. This time her outfit slowly began staining with blood. He could feel his heart racing, the pounding in his ears as everything began to hyper-focus. 3. Crack. Kyoka now began to cough blood, one of the broken ribs having ruptured something. He could feel his brain start to fog as electricity ran through his body in a continuous cycle, but he was too far away. He needed the electricity to go out. 2. Snap. An arm this time. His yellow eyes met Kyoka's gray ones, filled to the brim with fear and tears welling up due to the pain she was going through, along with a small trail of blood running down the corner of her mouth. And Denki snapped. 1. Denki growled. Crockham. Kyoka ducked her head from the giant flash of light and thunder that almost deafened and blinded her. At first, all she could feel was the tingling of electricity in the air, the static that caused her hair to stand on end. Then she could finally hear the screaming. It wasn't Denki's. Turning, she saw the villain that had hurt her being brutally shocked as torrents of lightning splayed out of Kaminari's fingers. You think you could hurt her in front of me and get away with it? Bringing forth another hand, he increased the intensity of the lightning, causing the man's screams to increase in volume and pitch, practically shrieking for mercy while the electric blonde slowly closed the distance between the two. Finally, the torrent stopped. The scent of burnt flesh and hair filled the hallway, almost making her retch. Have mercy, please, please. The villain begged with all the strength he could muster. Denki laughed, a sort of breathy chuckle escaping him as he stared maniacally at the downed man, electricity still sparking across his face as his eyes were dilated and glowing. There is no mercy, he cackled, a maniacal smile plastered over his face. Oh! The man writhed in complete agony as the torrent returned, and he was helpless to do anything. A brief pause as Denki grinned, his eyes burning. Lightning surged in his hands, and he prepared to unleash hell once more. Denki! Kyoka cried out, as she got up as fast as she could. Despite the pain of her injured ribs and broken arm shooting through her entire body, before grabbing a hold of her friend and falling back to her knees, Denki snarled as he turned to her, almost striking her with the lighting in his palm, and she gasped in surprise and fear, instinctively reaching for her neck to protect it. A moment later, the lightning petered out and he gasped before wrenching himself from her grip. I don't, that wasn't Herp. Falling to his knees, Denki could only groan as he expelled the contents of his stomach onto the floor. After a few heaves, he laid there trembling, horrified by his actions. That wasn't me. You gotta believe me. I would never. He looked at her pleadingly, and she could only gulp before shakily nodding. Turning to the roasted villain who was now unresponsive, he could only ask if he was still alive. Quickly checking with her quirk, she nodded and they both sighed in relief. Come on, she said as she tried to help him up before gasping in pain and falling to her own knees. You're hurt. Come on, Denki said as he grabbed her and settled her on his back before moving on. Take it slow. She winced as she wrapped one of her arms around his neck to make sure she didn't fall off. All right, at this point, I hope the others are all right, he said as he walked slowly, hoping to at least find a medical center or a first aid kit to help her. Jairu to Fordo. I'm with Kaminari. We're heading up, but it's going to take a while, she relayed. #copy that, Jairu. We're doing fine so far. We had to split up though to make our way up. Understood. We'll join you as soon as we can, she said as she turned off the comm, the adrenaline barely keeping her awake while Denki started to walk up the stairs. Ladies and gentlemen, and all the rest of you scumbags, we've certainly had quite the show tonight. But if the words of our beloved Mandalore are to be believed, he hasn't even put up a sweat. Sormo's holographic projection paced around mockingly, and Izuku was definitely wanting to shut him up already. He was also most definitely tired. The last thing he just fought being some kind of large robot that hit like a train, which is why I've decided to implement this one-of-a-kind opportunity. A large flash of light hit the floor of the arena and another figure appeared at the opposite side. Let's see who's better? The student? Izuku took a step back and gasped at his newest opponent. Toshinori rose from the dust and also gasped at his newest predicament. Or the master? Beer. Izuku. The crowd was now even louder than before, and Tormo grinned, $signs replacing his eyes. Place your bets now. Who will fall first and have their title replaced? Will the symbol of peace become the symbol of violence? Or will the symbol of hope become one of despair? He shouted, as the crowd somehow managed to go even wilder. You coward! Izuku hissed at the holographic projection. You cannot force us to fight, villain. All Might roared. Oh, can't I? His projection was then replaced by an image of Inko and Eri, the former clutching the latter in her arms. The two of them gasped and snarled in fury. I don't think I need to explain myself any further, do I? And hey, you should be thankful. Usually I'd go for fights to the death, but I'm not crazy enough to risk that much backlash. No, I'd say a good old-fashioned beating will do just fine. The both of them grimaced, unwilling to actually fight each other. But you know what would make this even more interesting? A bit less lopsided fight. No, I definitely want this to last. 'Cause what's to stop you All Might from just knocking the kid out in one blow and ending my fun? The projection reappeared, and he extended his hands to both of them. So let's make things interesting. Arcs of energy burst out and impacted them both, making them groan in pain. In this world, I make the rules, I make the laws, I govern everything. Which is why, for this fight, you two will be at equal power. And that means dash. Izuku gasped as his saber and pistol disappeared, reappearing in Tormo's hands. No toys for you, Mandalore. The energy then disappeared, and they were left kneeling on the ground. Izuku. He heard from across the arena, and he grimaced. I'm sorry about your brother, and about what's going to happen next. So am I, Beer. But I don't blame you, only the villains that put us in this position. All Might grimaced as he flexed his muscles and got into a fighting stance, with Mandalore doing the same. Looks like we've got the fight of the century right here, folks. Oh, I can already see the money rolling in. Let's get ready to rumbly. Roaring in unison, they charged at each other, one for all surging through the both of them. Cocking their fists back, they struck forward and the world exploded. Slowly climbing up the stairs, Denki made sure to hold Kyoka securely, while also making sure to not cup a feel on accident, all while panting due to having to fight both exhaustion from having to carry another person's weight, and from his mind starting to blank from the use of his quirk. Why? Of all things that would let me control my own electricity, why did it have to be that? He thought to himself as he kept carrying on, despite his knees screaming at him to take a break. He didn't have the same advanced hearing as the girl on his back did, but he could feel how fast her heart was beating. She was scared, a constant aura of fear emanating off of her. Hissing in pain over the burning sensation in his aching knees, he decided to use his quirk a bit more, this time by stimulating his knee muscles with electricity, allowing him to keep going a little while longer. Hey, are you all right? I didn't hurt you, did I? And no, I don't. You didn't hurt me, ow. Just that guy.
I'm glad.
Another silence remained between them. What about you? Are you hurt? Fuzzy? No, my mind's still clear. Kyoka swallowed as she tried to figure out how to ask what was on her mind. I know what you're thinking about how I changed. Kyoka shuddered. What happened? You were so different. It's something my mom told me about before I went to UA. She warned me about a biological problem with electricity-type quirks. What do you mean? Well, you know how people with fire quirks can overheat? Yeah. The same thing can happen to people like me. Our electricity can affect our brain chemistry or something. I didn't really pay attention to that. But my mom said it's worse if negative emotions are involved. It's why there's so few lightning-type heroes, and why it's so easy for us to become villains. Us? My uncle. He couldn't handle it, went insane. My mom had to put him down.
I'm sorry.
Don't be. You didn't know? Denki whispered before gasping and moving slightly quicker. He then gently set her down and opened up a cabinet with a first aid sign. Perfect. Just what we needed, he said as he kneeled next to her before grimacing. Sorry. Do you want to? It's fine. Just do it and don't you dare peek. She yelled before coughing up more blood. Hey, I'm not Mineta, he said, mildly offended. Kyoka grimaced and nodded. You're right, sorry, just stressed. Denki nodded and gently peeled back the jacket of her outfit and, using scissors, cut open the dress to where the biggest bruising would be. They both hissed once they saw the damage, and Denki was quick to look over what medical supplies were available. Wow, looks like this place has some top-notch stuff. This says that it should help numb the pain and clear up some bruising, he said as he held up what appeared to be an EpiPen but specifically designed for bruising and contusions. This stuff helps with internal bleeding. Definitely need that. Skelegro? What kind of first aid kit? No, focus. Grabbing some alcohol wipes, he gently cleaned the area where the wound was, Kyoka hissing as some of her skin had been torn open from the kicks. Denki tried his best to pay no mind to how tightly she was clutching his arm, nor how soft her skin was. Right now wasn't the time for anything like that. He quickly injected the medicines and Kyoka hissed again before sighing in relief as the burning pain soon started to ebb away. Denki then grabbed some bandages and quickly applied a gauze before wrapping it up as best as he could, while also providing a splint for her arm. You're actually not that bad at this, Kaminari. I wanted to become a paramedic with a quirk license. I thought that with my quirk I could be a walking aid. My mom convinced me to try for heroics, since sometimes paramedics don't get there in time. That's really cool of you, she said drowsily before falling unconscious. What the gyru? Kyoka, wake up. Quickly checking the medicine, he face-bombed as he saw the side effects. Warning, will cause instant drowsiness. Make sure the victim is in a safe location where they can rest for at least an hour. I'm such an idiot, no matter. I just gotta keep her safe. Quickly grabbing the comm, he sent a message to Fordo. Fordo, this is Kaminari. Kyoka got hurt by a villain. I applied some medicine from a medical station, but she's unconscious due to a side effect. I'm taking her to a safe spot where she can rest, he said, slightly stuttering through the message but managing it in the end. #KRRD right, understood. Get to a safe spot. We're already here at the top of the tower, and about to breach the security room. Just keep her safe, Denki. It's almost over. Hashtag. Copy that, he whispered before grabbing her and a satchel from the first aid cabinet. It took a few minutes, but eventually he was able to find a room that was relatively hidden away from the main hallways. He needed to shock the door open, but was able to get inside. Setting her down as gently as he could, he slowly looked around the room and back towards the door, before allowing him to finally rest a bit by sliding down a wall and sitting down next to her, while making sure that he was able to draw the blaster as fast as he could, in case some of the security bots or the villains arrived. Looking back at his friend, he noticed how beautiful she looked with the calm expression she currently had on her face, no longer contorted by pain nor fear, just looking like she was completely at peace as she was allowed to rest thanks to the painkiller. He was not blind to the conversation they'd had on the group chat yesterday, but he knew better than to push when he didn't fully understand things. Besides, now wasn't the time. Why did she have to go through all of this? He sighed, hating how despite all of them having been through a lot, she was the only one besides Izuku who had been on the brink of death more than once in the short amount of time they had been at UA. Denki shook his head as he gently brushed some of her hair to the side and applied a splint for her arm and some more medicine to other spots before cleaning her up as best as he could. Once he was finished, he stood guard waiting. It was all he could do. Panting in a mix of exhaustion and pain, Izuku looked at his beer, both of them glaring at their current tormentor. Still, without a plan, all they could do was continue their fight. Fortunately, the damage wasn't as bad as it could have been. All Might had been sure to deliver quick blows, but they were slow enough that Izuku combined with Hikage were able to either block or dodge. Still, sometimes it hadn't been enough. The exhaustion from the previous fights meant that a few accidental blows had landed and they definitely hurt. That wasn't to say that he didn't manage to actually score a few on his beer as well. Whatever Tormo had done had increased Izuku's durability and strength while simultaneously draining All Might's. More than likely, the energy was getting drained to him. But either way, it just meant that this fight was dragging out a lot more than he'd like. Izuku was forced to dodge another punch by All Might, one that rattled the entire arena and made Sormo's avatar glitch. Izuku's eyes widened as a plan began to form in his mind. "Buir," he roared, hoping that the man had studied enough Mandoe to understand. "Let's wreck some stuff." "Right." All Might then crashed into Izuku to feign an attack, and they smashed against a wall. Punching the wall brutally as Izuku dodged, the latter then bent his legs and kicked All Might straight in the chest, slamming him to the other side of the area. "The arena's shaking. We might be able to break out." Izuku roared as he blitzed forward and slammed into the wall that All Might had just crashed into, fully collapsing it. "So we just keep breaking," All Might replied as he grabbed Izuku by the suit and tossed him towards another wall. Detroit Smash. ORAR Thunder Smash. The two devastating cyclones of force impacted each other and caused the entire arena to shake once more.
Wufchoa.
That's certainly some power you two are putting out. Tormo sheepishly chuckled as he tried to regain his bearings. Seeing the shockwave that had emanated from just the force of their punches colliding, they both had the same idea. "Buir." "Right." The two roared and charged once more, their fists impacting harshly. Slam. Again they struck. Slam. Once more. Slam. And finally they went all out, trusting each other fully to avoid large mistakes, their fists striking each other in unison as they let out a flurry of blows that was tearing the place apart. Now they're really tearing into each other. "Let's see who falls first," he announced, not noticing the arena gradually degrading more and more due to all of the damage it was taking, simply blinded by the sheer amount of money he would make. The two heroes kept on punching and hitting, until they a couple of minutes later cocked their arms back and unleashed their final blow, making the walls of the arena slowly start crumbling. "Hey, what are you two numbskulls doing?" The crowd started to panic as a large chunk of the stands fell into the arena, and they started to shove and push each other to get away from the ensuing madness as Mandalore and All Might jumped over to the debris and started to use it as springboards. "Hey, what the dash? Time to bash some skulls." The two began to grow as the quirk's effect started to wear off, until they were back at full size. Just as Izuku jumped up and raised his fist to strike Torno, the villain activated the saber and swung it at him, causing the teenager to backflip, with the blade of solid plasma barely singeing the tip of one of his locks. However, as close as he was, Sormo was most definitely not a fighter. His wide swing left him open, and he took a foot to the jaw. The man crumpled after his teeth clacked together harshly, and both he and All Might popped out full-sized and ready for action. They were, however, unable to do much, as the terrorists were quick to point their stolen guns at the guests and clones, threats beginning to fly, with one even pointing their blaster right in the face of the closest hostage. Almost immediately, however, the security lockdown shut down, surprising them all as the heroes were now released. And the clones were quick to jump into action. Tackling the different villains, they were helpless against a now combined assault as the heroes joined in. Hey! One particular one heard as he began to panic from the plan failing through. Turning, he saw a very angry clone with a burn mark on his helmet along with a hole. What? I killed you. Try harder. The clone roared before slamming his head into the villain's face and knocking him out along with a few of his teeth and breaking his nose. Shaking his head for a bit after headbutting the villain, the clone let out a small groan. Ugh, this is going to leave a mark and a killer headache, he grumbled as he tapped the middle of his helmet where the burn mark was present, before picking up his blaster. How in the world are you alive right now, VOD? You scared us to death. Another clone asked while stunning one of the villains. The setting on my blaster was right above stun, so it luckily wouldn't do a lot of damage. However, it is apparently still enough to nearly blast all the way through our helmets when fired right in the face, he explained, before ducking a stray blaster bolt and fired a stun shot back at the one who had done it. Pulling his brother into cover, the other clone looked at the mark in the helmet and winced. You should really let RG or one of the medics look at that. Even if it didn't kill you, you're still concussed, and taking a bullseye like that at such close proximity can't be good either. I was planning on doing that, but right now less talk, more blasting, the blaster-marked clone said, to which his brother nodded. While the pros, clones, and villains fought, some of them even getting into hand-to-hand, Izuku looked around the scenery before grasping one of their former captors by the collar of his shirt. Where is your leader? He said in a tone that would make a shiver run down even the coldest glacier's metaphorical backs. Earlier, as Fordo and Melissa led the way up the tower, the group of hero students and clones tried to be as stealthy as possible, deactivating droids with EMP grenades that Melissa had been carrying around. However, the stealth approach was getting more and more difficult due to the constantly increasing amount of security bots. Eventually, they had to start splitting off, with friends staying behind so that they could cover more ground, both to split off the enemy forces and to go through divide and conquer tactics. Momo and a few clones had stayed behind on one of the previous levels, steadily holding their ground against the tide of security drones, the armor proving worthless against the blaster bolts of the clones. Go! Momo roared as after being provided some schematics, was now firing a minigun full throttle against the horde of droids approaching them, the other clones providing suppressive fire against the endless tide. A few villains armed with stolen blasters were with the droids, providing their own hail of fire to halt their advance up the tower. One clone looked over his shoulder and made some hand gestures, with two others wearing some form of vambraces making their way to the front and clicked on the devices, activating two blue shields which absorbed the shots as they slowly moved forward. Would be a lot easier if we could use explosives, one of them said, before dodging a bolt, firing back a stun shot. Less talking, boys, more shooting. Push forward, Momo shouted once again, before beginning to advance up the stairs with the droids' numbers thinning by the minute. A few minutes of skirmishing later, the droids had been disabled and the villains stunned. However, there had also been a few clones who'd been hit, forcing the group to split up once again so they could get the wounded to safety. Let's hope that the others are doing well. Keep forward. After a while, Tinya and Mineta ended up staying behind a while after to provide some more cover. Keep going, Mineta.
I'm trying.
Mineta cried out as his scalp began to bleed. Tinya, meanwhile, was knocking down pillars and walls to form debris to impede the robot's movement. Hopefully they can make it through. Soon enough, it was only Fordo, Melissa, Ochako in 2010 reached a large enclosure filled with large fans. Where are we? Fordo asked, still on alert for any more enemy forces. Wind generator room. There's a lot more robots inside the tower, probably waiting to ambush us. If we can climb up to the emergency exit at the top of this room, we can bypass it all. But that will require your quirk, Uraraka-san, Melissa said before turning. The three of them noticed that her hand was shaking, but she's still asking if Ochako could do it. It was admirable. She was under a lot of pressure, and was more than afraid as evident by her body's unconscious actions. But she still persevered and was helping them get to the end so that they could save the island. Truly worthy to be called a hero. Leave it to me. Ochako quickly had Melissa hold on to 2010 and Fordo and sent them up. At that moment, however, more security bots came out and approached her. Ochako. Incoming. I got it. Pulling out her blaster, she started to fire, taking them out one by one. But there were still too many, and she was quickly getting overwhelmed. Release your quirk.
No.
You might not be able to make it to the top. Just as the bots jumped at her, a surprise explosion erupted from the side as Bakugo appeared. Bakugo. Ice erupting from the ground announced the arrival of Shoto with Kirishima close behind, quickly providing backup for the girl. That was close. Are you all right? Kirishima asked the group as he hardened his arms in preparation to fight. Yeah. Fordo, Melissa, and 2010 are heading up. Good. Then that means that you can help us deal with these things. Who died, and made you boss? Bakugo demanded, angry as ever while small explosions popped in his palms before he blasted some more robots. Come on, man. We make a good team. Dream on. Nice work, Waff. Fordo and Melissa cried out as they were blown away by a fan. Oh no, they're getting blown away. Shoto immediately shed his coat and started to run to an ideal spot while telling Bakugo to knock a fan down in their direction. I told you to stop telling me what to do. The raging Pomeranian fumed. Still, the boy did knock down a fan, and Shoto quickly used his flames to create a surge of hot air that guided them in the right direction. Haha, good job with those flames, Todoroki. You definitely make VOD proud. Fordo yelled, to which he received a rare thumbs up. Fordo, we're about to hit the wall. Right. 2010. Grenades. Right. The two grabbed grenades from their belts and tossed them at the wall, making an entrance for them to enter. As soon as they were inside, Ochako released her quirk and they were able to land. Somewhat safely, the three groaned as they landed, with Fordo and 2010 helping up Melissa, who struggled slightly to get up thanks to the dress she was wearing. Which way now, Shield-san? Before Melissa could respond, Fordo quickly pushed her out of the way and raised his gauntlets as a sword crashed down on them. The armor chipped and cracked, but did not break fully. You brats shouldn't have tried to play hero. Eyes on me, too. 2010 roared as he tackled the villain. You clones are a pain in the ass. The villain said as he brought an elbow down on the armored teenager, trying to get him off of him while Fordo got into a fistfight with the villain that had tried to cut him into sashimi. And you villains are as annoying as lice. Really, 2010? That's the best you could come up with? Fordo asked as he punched him again. What? I panicked. The villain snarled as he kicked the two younger men off and prepared to stab them both through the chest. PWOW. Like a puppet with its strings cut, the villain collapsed, and behind him, Melissa with the smoking barrel of her pistol pointed right at his back. Good shot, Shield-san. I just shot a man. Relax, he's not dead, just unconscious, 2010 said as he tapped the villain with his foot a couple of times. He couldn't, however, refrain from the temptation of kicking the poor sod between the legs. The villain groaned but did not return to consciousness. Let's roll. Right. The trio kept moving through the stairs, quickly managing to take out two armed villains and continue on. Shield-san, where's the control room? In front of the central elevator. As they made their way forward, however, they found themselves blocked by more robots that were quickly taken care of by the EMPs. These grenades are pretty handy, Shield-san. They're perfect weapons against these robots, but why did you decide to make them? Fordo asked, as he rolled another one of the small spheres into a group of the robots. the electromagnetic pulse popping their systems. Well, I originally didn't really have any intention on using them, just something I did in my spare time. But I guess accidentally having a pair of jet boots chase me around while firing micromissiles due to an error in their programming also had a finger in it, she muttered beneath her breath. That's something, Fordo replied, before lifting a clenched fist, signaling them to stop as he peered around the corner, the hallway that would lead to the control room, meaning that they had reached their destination. Except for the fact that the entrance was guarded by at least 50 to 60 of the security bots, and they only had one grenade left, whose radius would only be able to get 1/5 of them at most. Oh great, the path is blocked. 2010 groaned as he cursed this place for having so many of these accursed droids. It was a given that it was necessary considering how important this place was, but still. Don't worry, VOD, I've got a plan for getting past these guys, Fordo replied. Oh yeah, and what is it? 2010 inquired. Live bait. Good idea, HEY. He protested with indignation. Come on, 2010. Midoriya-san, Daddy, Uncle Might, and the others are counting on us. Melissa pleaded with him, making puppy eyes, which made the clone's resolve crumble. Well, what the heck do you want me to do? Dress up as a salesman selling oil for cheap? He asked snarkily. Oil here. Get your oil here. Fresh from the depot. 2010 yelled as he, surprisingly enough, had managed to find a can of oil along with wearing the suit of a salaryman over his armor. All the droids turned in unison to face him, and immediately went after the poor guy. I hate this so much, 2010 screamed as he ran away, taking all of the mechanical beings with him, leaving the door unguarded. Fordo slightly chuckled in amusement, although Melissa felt guilty. Is he going to be all right? He'll be fine, albeit a bit moody afterwards. Let's go. Making their way a bit further, they found the door open and saw more people inside. We've got unknowns in there. Melissa gasped as she recognized one. That's my papa. And who's the balding one in a butler outfit? Fordo gestured to the other man with Wolfram, who was currently standing, and saying something to the villain. The moment Melissa saw who it was, she gasped in horror. That's Sam, but it couldn't be. He's been with our family ever since before I was even born. He'd never do anything like this. The power that money holds over people is an ugly one, Shield-san. In some cases, it can even make old friends turn to the dark side, Fordo said while putting a comforting hand on her shoulder, before raising his blaster and pointing it at the man in the lab coat. So far we've got 3 hostiles. The big one is the most dangerous. I'll take him out, then the other villain, then Sam. You head for the security system and end the lockdown. Right. On my mark. Fordo approached as quietly as he could until he was just at the doorway, and as soon as he got a clear shot, PTW, 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 slump, slump, slump. 3 bodies collapsed on the floor and Fordo was quick to move forward and secure their weapons, destroying them. Unfortunately, he didn't have anything to secure them with, but with the stun bolts, they'd be out for a good amount of time. What's going on? Melissa? Shield. Focus. Come with me, sir. Fordo said as he grabbed the man's wrist, the latter carrying some kind of box. Wait, there's been a misunderstanding, Ash. The security system is almost down. Everything should be good soon. Good. Now let's get out of IGH. Just as Fordo started to speak, he was grabbed by the neck and slammed into the nearest wall by Wolfram, who had gotten up, with the impact leaving the wall cracked and a small imprint of the clone as he slumped down unconscious. Aya! Fordo! Melissa shrieked in shock as she saw the brutal knockout. TCH, that was very bold of you, clone. Bold and stupid, Wolfram said as he got up. The stun bolt had apparently only affected him for a short time. Stay back, Melissa shouted, pointing the blaster at him while trembling from head to toe. You girl, alongside the rest of those children, have become quite the thorn in my side. Kaboom. Wolfram grunted as he was knocked down and glared at the new intrusions. You rang? Thorn called out while standing in the doorway, leaning against the frame, throwing a detonator up and down in his palm. Who the hell are you? Thorn. And here I thought you were supposed to be smart. How the hell did you get out of or escape capture? Well, since I have a minute to kill, why don't I tell you? Thorn and a squad of clones were running up the stairs, blasters in hand, while making sure to blast any of the security bots getting in their way. Thyre, Riss, Jack, Davis, Stone. Check the rooms for any civilians that could be trapped or held hostage. I'll head to the communications center and see if I can get comms up and running again. They had recently lost comms with Fordo, and with the supposed bomb threat, knew that something was wrong. Thorn, have you realized that every time that Izuku goes somewhere, villains seem to follow? Davis asked. Not now, Davis. Sometimes it feels like we're in a shounen anime, Thyre mumbled, before the group split up and started to search separate rooms. Yeah, sure thing. Next thing you know, we can all stare at a camera like that one really old show and the audience can know exactly what we're feeling, Jack commented sarcastically. Hey look, there's a camera right there, Riss said, pointing at said camera. If one were to see it from the camera's perspective, they would now see a clone look at them with a deadpan expression. How they managed to do that with a helmet in the way was a slight mystery. Come on guys, I found Fordo's signal. It's heading up. What about Izuku? Don't know. He doesn't have it on him for some reason. Probably got damaged. Then he's probably up there. Let's go. Sure, we had to blast a few droids, but it was worth it in the end. Now, how about you do us all a favor and surrender, huh? The entire squad readied their weapons, Wolfram snarling as he saw them approach. Shields, get behind us, Thorn ordered, with Melissa tugging her father with her behind the clones who formed a defensive line between them and the villain, while Riss and Jack slowly made their way towards the unconscious Fordo. Dragging the second oldest of the clones with them slowly, Wolfram suddenly put a hand on the wall, which started to bend and crack, before taking the form of iron tendrils that started to strike out at the squad, managing to smack Stone, who was launched out of the room and over the edge of the stairs, with the clone luckily managing to fire his tow cable, preventing him from plummeting to his death. The clones immediately started to open fire, but their blasts were practically useless against the metal tendrils. In the confusion, Wolfram knocked away the clones and captured David's shield. Stop, villain! Thyre shouted as he aimed to fire his rifle at Wolfram, only for two of the metal tendrils to pierce through his right shoulder and shin, cracking the armor and bone, sending him into shock due to the sudden pain. Thyre! Jack and Riss shouted as they made their way over to the clone, who still seemed to be in the middle of processing what had just happened to him before blacking out. Huh. Good luck capturing me now. Worthless dash, Wolfram hollered before being hit in the face by something. Turning back and holding his now bloody nose, he glared at the clone who just arrived, carrying the remnants of a droid in his hand.
Oi.
Come and get some. Arg, you clones are a real pain, Wolfram yelled as he then grabbed 2010. Uh-oh. The villain proceeded to lift up 2010 like it was nothing, and threw him over the railing and into Stone, who had just managed to crawl over it, leaving the two hanging once again. Not again. Sorry, didn't plan that through. I've got you brothers, Thorn called out as he fired his own tow cable, with 2010 grabbing a hold of it, with their brother pulling back and forth so they could swing back to the stairs. Crawling over the railing, the two sighed and looked down the stairs where Wolfram could be seen running down, with 2010 aiming his pistol at him, only to be stopped by Melissa. Don't. You might hit Daddy, she said to him, visibly shaking the clone, who after a short time nodded and holstered his weapon, before looking towards the unconscious Fordo. When he wakes up, we'll need to have a little talk, he half sneered. Melissa sheepishly chuckled. Save it for later? Right, but I do not like being used as freaking droid bait, 2010 muttered, while the rest of the clones sans Thyre and Fordo snickered. Heh, droid bait fits.
Ah.
Oh no, that is not going to be my name. Too late, droid bait. If Rookie can handle his, then you can handle this. Riss laughed and playfully punched the newly named droid bait, who just started muttering something beneath his breath as they gave chase to Wolfram. Jack looked at Sam for a brief moment with a small glare before following his brothers. Melissa, see if you can get in contact with All Might in Mandalore. We'll go after your father. All right, Melissa said as she went back to the control center to try and hack through the system, preventing communications from being transmitted. After a few minutes, she managed to break the code and began to transmit to the island once again. "All right, now let's see here. This should give them some breathing space," she mumbled as she keyed in the codes to shut down the security bots. All over the island and the tower, the patrolling machines shut down one after the other, leaving the clones who had been fighting them confused, along with the villains who now lost the majority of their already thinning numbers, quickly finding themselves surrounded. "Seems like we've taken the comms," Izuku thought as he looked back to the villain and squinted his eyes. "Now I'll ask again. Where is he?" All Might's phone then rang, and he saw that it was from Melissa. "Melissa, are you all right?
I'm fine.
But we have some injured clones, and the villain's taken my father. He's headed for the top of the tower." "Right. We're on our way. You hear that, Mandalore?" Izuku grinned as he looked at the suddenly fearful villain. "I did." With a slam, he knocked the villain out with a good headbutt and tossed his body away. All Might then quickly grabbed Izuku and burst out of the wall before leaping up towards the top. Meanwhile, on a boat a few hundred meters from the island, sitting on a crate, CC 2237, nicknamed Oddball by May, were playing some cards with some of his brothers, CC 1922, nicknamed Axe, CC 1041, nicknamed Warthog, and CC 1093, nicknamed Matchstick. "I can't be the only one here who's worried about them," Warthog said as he laid down a card, with his brothers shaking their heads. "Oriviote does seem to have a bad habit of attracting villains. That's why Nizu sent us out here to begin with," Oddball replied and folded his hand before sipping his tea. "The radio silence is odd, though. Think they're in trouble?" "Most likely. Hold on. What the hell's that?" Matchstick yelled as he pointed at the tower where something came out from the side. Picking up some binoculars, Axe's jaw dropped. "It's Oriviote and Beer. They're heading for the top of the tower." Standing up, Oddball cracked his neck and walked over to a small cabinet and opened it, revealing several jetpacks similar to the one Django had used, minus the missile. "Get the others. It's about time the cavalry arrived," he said while putting on the jetpack. Said small transport devices were the latest pride and joy of the engineering division, as they had tried and failed again and again to replicate and even refine Django's jetpack repeatedly ever since the USJ. Barring the ceiling incident with Izuku, they hadn't had any major problems. Not that he would believe them after all the bumps his head had gotten. It wouldn't be long before a dozen clones, all equipped with jetpacks, stood ready, before taking off and flying towards the island. "Broadside, if we make it through this, next round of Katsudons on me," Matchstick said over the comms. "I can already taste it," the aforementioned clone replied with a thumbs up. There was something about soaring through the sky at high speed that just got the blood pumping in Oddball. He hoped that one day, Izuku would be able to manifest something that would really let them cut loose. Otherwise, he could settle for the next best thing. Speeder racing. Something that every single brother vowed to never let Inko know about. Nevertheless, they soared through the sky, ready to provide support for their brethren. "All right, brothers, call in." "Green 1, standing by," Oddball said. "Green 2, standing by." Matchstick grinned behind his helmet. "Green 3, standing by," Broadside announced, checking his blaster. "Green 4, reporting for duty." Warthog nodded, loading a rocket into the launcher he was carrying. "Green 5, standing by." Axe gave a thumbs up, checking the DC-15X sniper he was carrying. One by one, the rest of the 12 checked in as they flew in the air, Oddball having already made a report to the UA Command Center. "Oddball, looks like we've got activity at the top of the tower." "Confirmed. I see brothers firing at somebody and what looks like metal pillars erupting from the rooftop. Looks like a metal manipulation quirk." "Roger that." "Green Squadron, as we approach the tower, we'll split off and circle around. Provide covering fire and see if anybody needs any assistance." "Oya. Oya." The clones desperately chased after Wolfram, who was now approaching a helicopter that was readying to depart. Quickly firing at the escaping villain with stun rounds, the 5 clones yelled swears at the guy that Inko definitely wouldn't approve of, and ones that should be kept away from area at all times. Just as they reached the top, They saw Wolfram walk on board a helicopter waiting for him, throwing in David before turning around with a condescending smirk. Damn it, no. They quickly opened fire at the helicopter instead, hoping to render it inoperable, but Wolfram was quick to raise up walls of metal. As the helicopter began to fly away, all hope seemed lost, until the tail of the helicopter was blasted clean off by 4 shots, each of them cutting a section of it until it fell onto the landing platform, rendering said vehicle useless. For the first time since arriving, Wolfram was dumbfounded as he looked at the helicopter. Impossible. The steel should be too thick for the bolts to go through. He roared in rage, before another one flew by and strafed his nose, making him look at the wall he had raised, where a new hole had shown up. The bolt had punched straight through it. Nothing is impossible for heroes. A voice called out from afar as All Might's speed tears through the walls of the tower as he and Mandalore appear. It's all right now, boys. Why? Because we are here. Wolfram clicked his tongue, before throwing David aside and popped his neck. Show off, he said, before his veins started to glow red, with his muscle mass seemingly increasing. 2 quirks. No, Moo? Stone asked as he aimed his blasters at the villain. Oh, please. I am far superior to those walking corpses. All Might quickly moved forward but grunted as he was pushed back by an even larger metallic pillar than before. Sam told me everything, how the great All Might's quirk is finally failing him, he smirked, before sending Mandalore, who had fired a couple of shots at him while he was monologuing. The nerve of that brat. Flying with another tendril, launching him into the distance. Izuku. All Might roared as he began to punch away the pillars that were attacking him. The pillars, however, increased in strength and he began to struggle against them. More and more began to attack him, much to the horror of the clones that could only look on. But just in time, ice covered a multitude of pillars, shattering them as explosions ripped them to pieces. We've got reinforcements. How can you let yourself be beaten by such a weak villain? Hurry up and get this over with. Heh, that Bakugo. All Might shook his head in exasperation as the clones began to move toward the students. Todoroki also affirmed his desire to help, fire burning across his left side as the other students arrived as well. The students and clones began to work together to break apart the tendrils, and All Might couldn't help but be inspired. If his students were working so hard, how could he let himself be inhibited by something as simple as a limit? With a roar of exertion, he burst through concrete and metal, punching through tendrils and shattering them to pieces as he approached the villain. Carolina! He roared as he crossed his arms.
Smash!
A blinding flash of light erupted in the area as winds tore through the battle zone. Prepare yourself, villain! All Might roared as he approached, fist at the ready only to grunt in surprise as he was suddenly tangled up in a mess of cables. Nice trick, but Aicharachin. All Might growled as he struggled in vain against the cables and was then choked by the villain. The villain's body began to change even more. Prepare myself? Take your own advice, he said as the effects of the quirk-enhancing device took further hold on his body. You've underestimated me. He then grabbed All Might's side and squeezed. All Might screamed in agony as the students and clones were helpless to do anything, quickly becoming overwhelmed. Where did this strength come from? This power seems to enhance his muscles, but in order to do that he'd have to dash.
No.
It can't be. All Might grunted out. Oh yes, when we were planning this little plot of ours, we were approached by a certain benefactor saying that he wanted to help. When I asked why, do you know what he said? If All Might's friend wishes to partake in evil, how could I not participate in his fall from grace? My only regret is that I will not be there when he realizes the truth of his friend and the agony that will bring. Dave. All Might gasped before focusing. So All for One is behind this? What's the matter? Looks like you've stopped smiling. NOO. All Might roared as he tried to punch Wolfram only to be dragged back by the cables. He was then held into the air with the cables stretching his limbs out. He noticed that Wolfram had created gigantic cubes of metal and machinery, and they collided, crushing All Might under their weight much to the horror of all who witnessed. Piercing the mass of material with spiked pillars, They could only feel despair as they witnessed what appeared to be All Might's defeat. Goodbye, symbol OFAUGH. Wolfram screamed as rockets exploded on him, and he was forced to protect himself. A sudden noise startled everyone, a high-pitched whistling that grew in intensity as a green and black streak of light ripped through the sky. Shrai! An explosion of light erupted from the center mass of the prison as Mandalore appeared, completely furious, darksaber in hand as he swiped through it, cutting it in half. Quickly turning as he cocked back his fist, One for All surged, and, protected by the full gauntlet, he could finally cut loose. ORAR thunder smash! The mass erupted into a shower of metal and sparks as he and All Might were now left falling in the air. BUIR.
Adi.
Izuku quickly grabbed onto All Might and, concentrating as hard as he could, focused on Nana's power. And with float, he quickly slowed down their descent. Although they still slightly crashed into the rooftop, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. How did you survive that fall? Wolfram screeched, just as Mandalore stood up. The saber ignited and lifted it into the air, with the smoke clearing just in time to show what had saved him. Clones flying with jetpacks. Who said anything about falling? Mandalore snarled back, just as the clones landed on each of his sides, preparing their weapons. Izuku. All Might called out as he got back up to his feet. Beer. You all right? I'm fine now. You all should head back and let me handle this, he said as he took a step forward. Sorry, Beer, but I'm afraid that it's a hero's job to save those in need no matter what, right? I wonder who could have taught me that. Tashinori snorted in amusement. Somebody who's going to get in trouble with your mother. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Then will you help me once more, Naad? Always, Beer. VOD. Head back to the others and provide covering fire along with evacuating the guests. We'll take it from here. Right. At once, 12 jetpacks roared to life and they moved out of the way. It's just you and us now, Wolfram, Mandalore called out as he readied the darksaber. Let's go. All Might yelled as he charged forward. Oya. There's no way you pathetic heroes will stop me. You don't know when to lie down and accept your defeat. More pillars erupted, ready to crush them only to be stopped by the combined forces of Bakugo, Todoroki, and the multiple clones that were opening fire with rockets, grenades, blasters, and more. You're the one who doesn't know he's beat. I won't let you stop them. We stand behind our brother. Wolfram hissed as he sent dozens of tendrils their way, with Izuku cutting through them like a hot knife through butter. All Might struck one head-on, absolutely shattering it to pieces and then blitzing forward, increasing speed until it seemed that the very air was burning against him as he brutally punched another tendril and disintegrated it. Mandalore sprinted forward as One for All began to surge through him. He could feel the presence of his predecessors within him as he received a sudden burst of speed and launched forward, kicking straight through another pillar before kicking off and spinning, slicing through more. Soon the two reunited, and ran together with the others below, watching on as Wolfram roared, his discordant voice echoing over the battlefield as metal, machinery, and all kinds of materials rose in the air before combining into a large cube, one that would surely devastate the entire tower if it landed. To overcome the crisis in front of you, with everything you've got, and save people, no matter the cost. That's what makes someone a hero. The two leaped forward, fists at the ready as they soared through the sky together. I'll destroy this entire tower. Double Detroit smash. The heroic duo roared in unison from the depths of their very souls, One for All surging not only from within them, as emerald and golden lightning erupted from their bodies, but also connecting them. At the moment of impact, the two could, for a few moments, not only feel the predecessors, but also each other. For a moment, they could see. In that brief moment of unity, Tashinori Yagi understood more about Izuku Midoriya than he ever could have through conversation. And the same could be said for Izuku Midoriya towards Tashinori Yagi. And they both realized the truth of One for All. The moment was fleeting, and after it was gone, much was lost, including the knowledge gained. But they both knew that they could do so again, and learn once more. But right now wasn't the time to focus on that. As they burst through the obstacle, they smiled together as they became a shining star in the dark night.
Mandalore.
Stop him, All Might. Go Midoriya. Destroy this guy. KOYCY. And miraculously, the both could see it. One for all acting on their very desire to defeat their opponent and save their island. White, then blue, red, green, yellow, purple, lavender, gold, and emerald. The visual suddenly disappeared as they both clenched their fists. Let's go. Beyond.
Plus ultra.
A rainbow of light surged around them as they became a shooting star heading towards the metal abomination that kept on sending tendrils and arms after them, until they struck home. The construct began to crack and creak, before slowly falling apart after the two heroes struck the main component holding it together, Wolfram himself. As the structure collapsed, the evacuees alongside the clones and the students looked up at the spectacle, marveling. And David Shield, as he was freed from his prison, looked into the sky and saw his old friend from all those years ago, but for a single moment before reality returned, and he saw instead Mandalore taking his place. And he realized the truth. So this is what you meant, Toshinori, he thought, before starting to fall. It wouldn't be long, however, before the sound of jetpacks could be heard and something grabbed him, slowing his descent, with David looking to see the clones having caught him, bringing him to safety on the ground. Are you all right, Mr. Shield? One of the clones asked. I'm fine, thanks to Mandalore. All Might and you, I'm Oddball, sir.
I'm Tog.
Thank you, Oddball Tag. I am in your debt. I think that there's somebody else you should talk about when it comes to debts, Oddball said as they motioned to an approaching All Might. David, I would like to have a word with you. Please tell me what in the hell Sam was talking about selling. Something for a huge amount of money back in the main hall, All Might said, looking at his old friend who seemed almost ashamed of himself. I'm sorry, old friend. We originally intended to hire actors. Sam said he wanted to retire, but the board had too much on him. Said that he would use the chaos to disappear. But in the end, I couldn't go through with it and scrapped the plan. Guess Sam didn't want to end it. But why? Why else, Toshi? For you, that device was meant to boost your own quirk, restore you to your former glory. But I was worried if it would put even more strain on you after using it, David said before morosely chuckling. I guess in the end, it didn't matter. Dave, you were our guiding light that breached the darkness. All Might, I just wanted that light to keep shining a little longer. Dave, I understand how you feel, but as I've said before, the future is in good hands, Toshinori said as he gestured behind them to where Izuku was with his friends quickly running up to meet him. Yes, I see it now. The boy you treat as your son and your successor. He will be the guiding light of the next generation. Indeed, but unlike me, he will not shine alone. David watched as Izuku tightly hugged all of his friends, even standing back and showing off his new sword, a personal project of Melissa's if he wasn't mistaken. They will become the foundation that society needs. One that will bring hope for a better tomorrow, he told his friend, placing a hand on his shoulder. David looked at the ground in shame, ashamed of himself for building the device in the first place and bringing the entire island and its residents in danger. Hearing the sound of marching, he looked to the side and saw all of the clones marching in unison, carrying wounded and also the destroyed droids. Those clones, they're truly something special. Are they truly sentient? He asked, observing as some of Midoriya's friends then surrounded the clones and hugged them as well. Even Melissa came up to one with some quite damaged armor and helped support him, Izuku quickly going to the other side. They are, and they will also be a part of that hope. Looking around the plaza, a clone was noting down the damages, casualties, and the people currently present. Hey, has anyone seen Kaminari and Jiru? He asked, looking around, which was soon followed by more of the clones and students who were just as baffled at him, only now noticing the duo was unpresent. Where were they last seen? 3126, now named Noble, asked. Somewhere on the lower levels, he should still have the comm. Right. Kaminari, do you read me? The situation has been resolved and the villains defeated. Where are you guys? The beeping of the comm was the only thing they could hear, with several of them starting to feel slightly uncomfortable over how the electric blonde didn't pick up. Blitz and those two's parents are gonna kill us if they're dead. Search the lower levels. We need to find them and make sure they're okay. Hashtag KRRT. This is Kaminari. I'm in a side room. Looks like a lab. Let me see. Room number is 73B, 101. Kyoka's still unconscious, but we're both safe and she's stable. Hashtag. Alright, we're sending a squad down to meet with you. Hashtag right. We'll be right here waiting. Is everybody alright? Hashtag. We're alright, Denki. We're all safe. Everybody's alive. Hashtag that's good, that's good. Hashtag the teenager said, before the comms shut off. That kid. Despite being no good at math, he has a big heart and even medical knowledge, the clone said, as he looked at Momo walking towards him, before saluting her. She balked at the gesture, but before she could respond the squad had already walked past her. She looked back in confusion, and then turned back to continue helping the others. How are Jairu and Kaminari, Trip? She asked the clone who had communicated with her current best friend and her book buddy. They're okay. Although VOD Kaminari sounded, I don't know, distressed? Like he'd just gone through something traumatic. That's concerning. Any idea of what could have happened? No, ma'am. We're in the dark about that for now. Momo decided to follow them. Although she was tired and quite hungry, she knew that she had to be there for her friends. They soon managed to make their way down the levels. The elevators were finally working again, and approached the room carefully as they were unsure of Kaminari's mental state and wanted to be careful, especially once they noticed the door was locked from the inside. Momo, call out to Denki. Right. Denki. It's Momo along with the VOD. We're here. What's the book I have? The one you want. Momo and the clones looked at each other in confusion before she turned back and replied. The Lord of the Rings. An original one in mint condition from the pre-Quirk era. A few seconds passed before the door was unlocked and opened, with the raven-haired girl immediately covering her mouth and nose while gagging due to the stench of practically burnt flesh and static hitting her nostrils the moment it did. Denki? She poked her head in and saw Denki sitting on a chair with Kyoka still on a lab table, unconscious. It's not us, sorry. I turned on the ventilation, but I can't get the smell to go away, Denki said, a haunted look on his face as he could only stare forward into something. Following his gaze, she gasped in shock at what she saw at the other end of the hallway. One of the villains who had attacked them, but he had several burns of different degrees all over his body. What happened here? She asked, frightened, as clones went inside and started covering the unconscious villain and back to patches. That should be quite obvious. Static in the air, burned guy. Denki. He was hurting Kyoka. I lost control. I lost control, he whispered, his hands shaking as he looked down on them, almost as if he had blood on them. Walking over and kneeling before him, she lifted his chin, looking at him with compassion. We're gonna get through this, Denki, all right? His eyes were glassy and unfocused, but she still stared directly into them. Is she safe? He finally managed to get out, before looking over at the clones taking Kyoka out on a stretcher. She'll be okay. Nothing a few days and back to can't fix, the clones said to him, as they carried her towards the elevator. You can rest now, Denki. You saved her, she said as she held him tightly. I could have been better, he sighed, just as Momo helped him up. Have I ever told you how much I dreamed of being able to control and cast my electricity, Yamamo? I do believe you have on some occasions during our book club. Why? She replied, looking to her friend who looked more and more pale by the minute. Well, I finally found out how, he said, his voice turning grim. How? Hatred. For all her literary knowledge, all the texts and poems of wisdom that she learned, she could not find a suitable reply. Finally, after many moments of silence, she simply held on to him. Just rest, Denki. You can rest now. Beer. Sayurai Ka. Izuku cried out as he ran towards his mother and Eri. Izuku. They both cried out, running towards him. He quickly wrapped the both of them up in a hug, the three falling to their knees, Izuku sighing in relief before noticing something. Hold up. Where's Rookie? He exclaimed, looking around for his younger clone, before hearing something. You think you're tough, huh? Well, why don't you talk with your fists then? The voice, similar to his, though in a higher pitch, called out, followed by the unmistakable sound of a fist colliding with a face. Quickly looking in the direction of the sound, he found said clone sitting on a down villain and currently beating his face to a pulp. Sprinting over, he put his younger brother into a full Nelson and pulled him off. Easy now, Rookie. He's had enough, he exclaimed while Inko and Eri came over, the former covering the latter's eyes so she wouldn't have to see the rather ugly sight. Not my fault, Rookie grumbled before mumbling something about how villains were supposed to stay down after they surrendered. Ugh, feels like a tiny Django, huh? He said to Inko in a happy, yet melancholy tone, who just nodded in response to him. He does, she whispered as she leaned into his hug, Eri clutching onto his leg. After letting go, he then kneeled down to first give Rookie a lesson about how it wasn't very heroic to beat on people who were lying down, saying that's something Bakugo would do, which of course immediately made him stop and even apologize to the villain of all things, and then to see if the villain's face was too broken beyond repair. So cute, everybody in the vicinity thought. Izuku then headed back and swiftly picked up Eri, who squeaked in surprise and marched off. Where are you going? I am dead tired. I am going to sleep. Want to join me, Eri? Eri quickly agreed and nodded before yawning, the day's events having stressed her out a bit. Picking her up, she nuzzled her cheek against his, as they headed back towards the hotel to get some rest, while the heroes and the clones who decided to stay behind took care of the rest. The next morning, Izuku woke up very refreshed and, checking his messages, saw that Island was up and running again, with the exception of the tower, which had to be almost completely renovated. Oops. Then again, about 90% of the damage was due to Wolfram using the structure to turn himself into an amalgamation of wires and steel. He met up with a few of his friends and brothers, some of them even being accompanied by other people of their age, amongst them a few girls. It had both made him chuckle and wish to sink into a hole when a few of them had decided to talk about how they met, along with teasing him about the Keldabe kiss again. Why can't they just let me live it down? He suddenly felt a tug on his sleeve and looked down to Eri, who held a hand over her stomach, soon followed by it growling.
Ah, sorry, Eri.
We'll go and get breakfast now. How does apple pancakes sound? Seeing the sparkles in her eyes made him smile as they walked towards a diner to eat breakfast, and he soon found himself meeting up with Tashinori, in skinny form, and his mother. Oh, hey guys. What are you doing here? Tashinori began to cough as Inko stuttered, but he was able to recover. Oh well, my stomach's been coming back, so I thought I'd have a light breakfast and invited your mother to join me, Tashinori said with a sheepish chuckle. That's great, beer. I'm so glad for you, Izuku said, none the wiser to what was truly going on. Oh yes, Chio says that at this rate, I'll finally be able to have a full stomach by the end of the summer if I continue with the daily treatments. That's awesome. Got any ideas for your first official meal? All in American-style breakfast, Tashinori shouted with glee, his slightly less gaunt eyes gleaming in the light with joy and anticipation. Waffles, eggs, bacon, orange juice, sausage, pancakes with syrup, hash browns. He thought with excitement, almost vibrating in his chair. Thorn and Rex were sitting at a different table, the latter face palming at how dense Izuku currently was. If he doesn't find out about those two within a month, I'll personally tell him. Thorn groaned. Are you sure about that? Pretty sure you'll be on the receiving end of the Merev fist, if you do that. Rex deadpanned, to which Thorn froze up and suddenly found his tea very interesting. Back at the other table, Izuku sat down and looked at the menu, with Eri ordering a stack of apple pancakes while he himself had a hard time deciding what to choose. Eventually he went for a simple omelet with meat and some hash browns. Later, as they began to eat, Tashinori began to explain what would happen with Island. The expo is still going on since the only damage was really to the central tower with the laboratories. All the other exhibits are still fully functional. I've spoken on David's behalf to the board, and since he admitted to not supporting the plan, he still retains his position but is under heavier scrutiny now. Well, that's good to hear, I guess. What about Melissa? Is she all right? And Kyoka? Izuku asked in concern. Melissa is doing fine, although she has been very active with another project of hers, apparently something to do with a certain someone reigniting hope for her dream? Toshinori asked coyly. Izuku slightly flushed, but was pleased to hear that Melissa was taking steps to pursue her old dream. She could definitely be a support class hero like Powerloader, he thought to himself, while looking out of the window and seeing the sun shining down above, feeling happy that the threat was over, but couldn't help but be cautious, due to how it seemed that trouble did seem to follow him around like his brothers said. As for young Jairu, she's thanks to that back-to-tank you summoned, she should make a swift recovery. Young Kaminari hasn't left her side at all, however. Hopefully, she can recover enough to enjoy the rest of the festival. That's good to hear, Izuku said, glad to hear about the recovery of his friend. I'll make sure to visit them later today. Any news on how it's going back home at the apartment, Beer? He then asked and looked at Inko sipping her tea. Well, it's certainly gotten a lot less lonely ever since Cut arrived, she said with a small smile. Almost feels like before you moved to UA. I didn't move to UA, Beer. I just... Izuku then blinked as he realized the truth. It had been a few weeks since he rescued Eri, and they'd established that she would stay as a ward of the school. He, however, constantly stayed over to take care of her and spend the night since she had constant nightmares. It got to the point that he had his own dedicated shower room and had a duffel bag with various clothes with a laundry hamper to separate his and Eri's clothes. Huh, he said as he more or less lived at the school now, and had also practically left his sweet mother all by her lonesome, if Cut hadn't been there. Faster than anyone could comprehend, he bowed his head in apology towards her, all but begging her for forgiveness, practically rapping the words, at a speed nearly the same as his muttering. After forgiving him thoroughly and paying for their meal, the group decided to walk around the expo and enjoy it fully, considering they didn't have that much time to do it yesterday. They walked towards the space exhibit, meeting Ochako along the way, who was as always excited about being able to learn more about space. The group read about the possibilities of space colonies and advanced spaceships that could have been if Quirks hadn't arrived 2 centuries ago, with Ochako seemingly sulking slightly at the thought. After a few hours, they parted ways with the brunette and went along to see a support gear exhibition, meeting Melissa there, along with a strange little automaton on 4 wheels that looked a bit like a toaster and sounded like a mouse. A contraption that Eri had a lot of fun chasing around. It was honestly adorable. At first she was curious about it, but then the thing booped her foot. She shied away a bit before booping it back, and it devolved into a game of tag. Izuku knew that they were so close to a true, blinding smile once he saw how the corner of her lips were perked up and how her eyes shined. Just one more push, he thought with a happy sigh. Walking down the hallway of the hospital, Izuku knocked on one of the doors and awaited a reply. Come in, the drained voice of Denki said from the door, to which the greenet entered. How is she, Kaminari? He asked his friend who sat on a chair, staring at something in the middle of the room, before looking over his shoulder. Stable, but all of this could have been prevented. He sighed and looked back at what his eyes were fixated on before. Floating in a back-to-tank was Kyoka, wearing spats and a tank top while a breathing apparatus covered her mouth and nose. The tank, however, was different from the others. Rather than being a tube that stood up, this one was shaped more like a tanning bed, allowing it to be moved around much easier. Perhaps so, but what matters is that you saved her life. You did that. Almost killed somebody in the process. Somebody who would have certainly killed you too, Izuku said before sighing. Look, my brothers have killed already, and if it weren't for the situation, I probably would have killed Shigaraki too. He stumbled over his words before sighing. Look, point is, you did what was necessary. Did you lose control? Yes. Same thing that I did back at the USJ, and we've both been left with scars from those events, Izuku said, pointing to Denki's now wrapped hands. I could have killed her. A stray bolt, anything. When she tried to stop me, I almost But you didn't, proving that a part of you still had control. Kaminari, Denki, just because you lost control doesn't mean that you'll become a villain. When we get back home, we'll train together, and you'll learn how to control your power, Izuku sternly said with his hand on Denki's shoulder. A sudden motion caught his attention, and he smiled. Besides, I think you have bigger things to worry about. Denki's eyes widened, and he turned to face Kyoka, who was waking up and slightly panicking due to being underwater. He quickly went to her side and helped her out of the water, showing so much care and gentleness with her that Izuku felt that he was intruding. Kyoka softly coughed and blearily looked at Denki. Denki? I'm here, Kyoka. I'm here. Izuku smiled, glad to see his friends safe and healthy. Even after having woken up, Kyoka was recommended to stay in the Bacta for at least 1 to 2 more days to make sure she recovered completely, and after her family heard about what happened, demanded, that she be returned home, along with Denki after his mom got hold of the news. Either way, he would have gone with her. I guess we'll see you back at U.A? Izuku asked, as he walked with Denki, who was currently pushing the Bacta tank with Kyoka still inside, the punk rock girl giving her friend a thumbs up. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to get grounded for the weekend, just so my mom and sister have an excuse to hug me all day for themselves, Denki sighed as they approached their transport. The vehicle looked unusual to say the least, an elongated metal hull with sharp edges along with a big glass panel at the front, where 4 solar panels were placed around it along with 2 near its tail, while the middle section was hollow and big enough to hold the Bacta tank and a few other passengers. That's a pretty cool ride, maybe? Izuku thought as he inspected it more. It would be interesting if my quirk could make flight-based vehicles. Could I potentially influence what it creates? Something to consider for later. Waving them off as the transport lifted off of the ground, Izuku and his friends continued on with the next few days, enjoying everything that the expo had to offer. And yes, Izuku did get plenty of autographs. And as his friends and loved ones got on the final flights back towards Japan, Izuku looked back at the island and smiled. He was glad to have been here. The call had been odd to say the least, but Nizu had been adamant that they arrive at UA as soon as possible. Principal Nizu, what is it? The mammal was noticeably tense as he walked to his office chair. We received an anonymous message in the mail. Whoever dropped it off was unmarked and unfortunately unidentifiable. There aren't any traces of fingerprints nor scents either, Nizu said grimly. Izuku grimaced at the news as he was handed the holopad. We've already tested it for malware, explosives, toxins, and the like, and we saw the message first, Nizu said before sighing. We felt it best that you also saw the message. Izuku raised his brow, but pressed the button. The holopad opened up, and a soft light filled the room, but it presented a dark room, a figure bathed in light from behind, so that only shadow was shown. The figure spoke. Mandalore, you have something I want. Author. And presto, we have finished. Apologies for the long wait. It took us nearly 2 months, but here you are. A movie-sized chapter for your enjoyment. We once again apologize for the lack of content from other stories, so we hope this compensates for it all. Don't worry. More Legion and DLC coming soon. Next up in the ladder is our favorite captain and what he does on a day-to-day basis. Until then, Vode and CT 2864. Kote.